Warrior Lore. Chapter 2652. Rock Emperor. Rock Emperor. Rock Emperor. Countless living beings shouted as they looked up at the sky. Their eyes were fixed on the figure shrouded in purple-gold light as they shouted in unison. Countless people's shouts condensed into a terrifyingly loud sound that reverberated between heaven and earth. Along with every shout, the entire world trembled along with it. Rumble. The sky was shaking, the earth was trembling, the mountains were collapsing, and the blood river was exploding. Between heaven and earth, a strange, formless energy filled the air and swept through. It flowed along the invisible veins buried deep in the earth, heading towards the desolate nation's imperial palace in the middle ground and converging towards the ancient wilderness continent's divine temple. Streaks of formless chi turned into streaks of golden dragon-shaped shadows that roared as they pierced through the veins in an endless stream. At this moment, Du Xiaofu, who was wrapped in a violet gold light and was charging towards the demon god, felt an invisible power in his body, causing his entire body's chi to rapidly revolve. The veins in his body glowed and burned brightly, forming a mysterious pattern. This pattern seemed to contain an inexhaustible force that continuously flowed into Du Xiaofu's limbs and bones, making him feel that his entire body was filled with terrifying power. Rock Emperor. Rock Emperor. Rock Emperor. All the creatures in this world were shouting loudly, shouting the name Great Rock Emperor. In the desolate nation's stone city, within the imperial palace, the dragon chi was torrential and dense, rising into the sky. The terrifying power was vast and mighty between heaven and earth, causing the entire stone city to be enveloped in a golden glow. Rock Emperor. Countless citizens of the desolate nation, regardless of whether they were in the ruins of the battlefield or on the streets that had yet to be touched by the flames of war, were all facing the direction of the imperial palace. All of them knelt on the ground and bowed deeply. Everyone knelt down to the young man standing high in the clouds from the bottom of their hearts, hoping that he would defeat the fiend celestial and quell the great calamity. As the people of the desolate country bowed, all the living beings in the 3 continents, 9 provinces, and 1 world felt their souls throbbing intensely at that moment. Immediately after, the living beings on the battlefield all knelt down and shouted crazily in unison. Rock Emperor. Rock Emperor. At this moment, the entire world submitted to him and worshipped him. Boundless energy continued to flow into the figure in the sky. The ferocious golden light gathered and covered his entire body. Even his true body could no longer be seen clearly. All that was left was a blurry golden outline. Amazing! Incredible! This brat was actually able to reach such a level, causing all living beings in the world to kneel down and call out his name. Now, it won't be so easy for the demon god to kill him. In the distant crowd, Fuibai said excitedly. His body was trembling, and he wanted to prostrate himself like all the living beings in the world. The worship of the entire world and the faith of all living beings condensed into the boundless imperial palace's dragon chi, augmenting his body. I'm afraid that in this world, only this kind of power can fight against the demon god. Beside him, the beautiful woman in palatial attire, East Deity, could not help but say with ripples in her eyes, Dad has become so powerful. Little Xingxing, Du Xiaohuang, and Du Xiaolin said while stuttering. Du Tingxian, Du Yunlong, Zhen Qingchun, Du Xiaoyao, and the rest of the half-step heavenly sage experts looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. They never expected that things would develop into such a situation. While everyone was shocked, they also had endless expectations. They hoped that with the augmentation of this power, Du Xiaofu could match the demon god. Even if they could not kill him, they could at least slow down the unstoppable progress of the great calamity. Everyone raised their eyes and looked up at the sky. As Du Xiaofu flew, he suddenly shouted, "Tyrannical shadow! Roar!" In the stone city's imperial palace, a violent roar suddenly sounded. When this roar sounded, an azure dragon phantom broke through the roof of the palace and flew across the sky. It directly went to Du Xiaofu's side and danced around him. Du Xiaofu slightly stretched out his hand. and the azure dragon phantom let out another violent roar before it quickly flashed into Du Xiaofu's hand and was grasped by him. Then, a dazzling golden light condensed, and the shadow of the azure dragon disappeared. A long sword with an azure gold color appeared in Du Xiaofu's hand. Suddenly, a domineering aura filled the air, and a clanging sound was faintly heard. On the azure gold longsword, azure gold runes flickered, and the sword body emitted a faint azure gold light. It looked simple and crude, but in fact, it was extremely agile. The arc of the sword blade was elegant, and the azure gold light shone brightly. The runes flowed naturally. Small dragon phantoms circled around the long sword, showing an endless domineering aura. The whole world worships the Emperor's aura on the body. To be able to reach this step, it's really incredible. The changes in Du Xiaofu's body made even the demon god opposite him unable to help but be moved. Two demon eyes that were like two black suns turned, and there was an unconcealable ripple. The arm that carried an unparalleled force, waving in the void, could not help but pause. Obviously, the aura that Du Xiaofu was showing at this time, even as a demon god who had the ultimate power of this world, he could not help but be deeply shocked. Kill! Du Xiaofu roared and slashed with the long sword in his hand. A dazzling sword chi shot out from the blade, carrying an unparalleled sharpness and fierceness, as if it could destroy everything in its path. The void was directly torn apart by this sword, creating a neat crack that reached the demon god's position. At this time, Du Xiaofu felt that his entire body was being supported by an endless amount of power. His strength actually soared all the way, quickly surpassing his original realm. He seemed to have a feeling that under such circumstances, all the living beings in this world had separated a bit of their power and injected it into his body, giving him the power to destroy everything in his path, ferocious and shocking the world. The whole world worships, gathering endless dragon chi to support your body, and thus reaching the peak of the heavenly sage realm. I have to say, you have really surprised me. After being stunned for a moment, the shock in the demon god's eyes slowly disappeared, and he said leisurely, "But just this alone is still not enough." As he spoke, the demon god's arm moved rapidly, and a huge fist shook the void. Layers of demon chi whizzed forward with earth-shattering force, covering Du Xiaofu's head. Rumble! In a huge roar, the demon god's fist finally collided with the long sword in Du Xiaofu's hand. Chi chi chi! The sharp sword chi burst out, cutting into the demon chi outside the demon god's body. It was as if it had stabbed into a pile of sand, making a teeth-numbing sound as it encountered great resistance. However, this resistance was ultimately broken by dominating shadow. The unparalleled sharpness was unstoppable, and it ruthlessly cut into the demon god's fist. Clang! A soft, muffled sound was heard, and Du Xiaofu and the demon god separated. The long sword was suddenly repelled, and even Du Xiaofu's body was pushed back in the void step by step. Biffed! Du Xiaofu flew back thousands of miles, and in the endless light, a purple-gold blood arrow spurted out, piercing a dark hole in the void. In his hand, the long sword, dominating shadow, buzzed and vibrated endlessly. On the opposite side, the demon god's body also took half a step back, and he retracted his arm. During this process, a stream of black blood sprinkled in the sky, corroding the space. If one looked closely, they would see that there was a long and narrow wound on the back of the mountain-like fist, and demon blood was gushing out. The demon god is injured. Look, the demon god is injured. When a few sharp-eyed creatures saw this scene, they immediately cried out loudly, excited to the extreme. In everyone's opinion, the demon god had always been invincible. It was difficult to even shake his majestic body, let alone injure him. However, this time, Du Xiaofu's attack actually injured the demon god, and demon blood was sprinkling in the sky. How could this not be exciting? The demon god is injured, but he is not immortal. The Rock Emperor is mighty. The Rock Emperor seems to be injured as well. The demon god is really too powerful. It's good that he can injure him. This means that there is still a chance to completely kill him. And all of this can only depend on the Rock Emperor. I hope the Rock Emperor can sweep across the sky and kill the demon god. Rock Emperor, hold on. Slay the gods and subdue the demons. Rock Emperor, Rock Emperor. Countless living beings began to roar madly once again. Everyone was in high spirits. At this moment, everyone saw a glimmer of hope. What they thought was right. As long as the Rock Emperor was around, there was a possibility of killing the demon god. However, at this moment, while they were cheering for the Rock Emperor, they were also worried for him. After all, the demon god's strength was obvious to all. Himph, in front of the demon god, Du Xiaofu is just an ant. Being stung by an ant is completely insignificant. I'm afraid that in the end, your Rock Emperor will disappoint you. No matter what, he won't be a match for the demon god. Someone from the devil religion snorted, still full of confidence. In the exchange just now, anyone with a discerning eye could see that even though the demon god was injured by Du Xiaofu's sword, he was still at an absolute disadvantage and was not a match for Du Xiaofu at all. You can actually injure me. To be able to do this, even if you die, you should be proud. The demon god said loudly in the sky as he looked at Du Xiaofu with his demonic eyes. The wound on the back of his hand was entangled with a golden aura that kept corroding it. However, under the dense demonic aura, the golden aura was quickly devoured, and the blood flowed back drop by drop. Then, the wound healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. In just a short moment, the long and narrow sword mark disappeared. His skin was suffused with a strong bronze color, releasing an explosive feeling of power. Pfft. In the distance, Du Xiaofu's feet stepped on the void and finally stopped his body from flying backward. The next moment, he clutched his chest with one hand and spat out another mouthful of blood. The result of the blow with the demon god was that the demon god's tremendous power passed through the overlord's shadow and into his body, causing him to be violently shaken. The chi and blood in his body were in turmoil, and his body felt like it was about to explode. The long sword in his hand also buzzed incessantly. Is the difference still so great? Du Xiaofu stood in the sky and mumbled to himself. He could not help but feel shocked. His strength had suddenly increased completely by relying on the converging power of countless living beings in this world. Through the condensation of the underground dragon vein, it had entered the ancient wilderness continent's divine temple and the desolate country's stone city's imperial palace, turning into a vast and boundless imperial palace's dragon chi. The human emperor's seal in the divine temple had long been integrated with his body. The overlord's shadow in his hand, as the desolate country's new seal, had condensed an unparalleled and vast power. It could be said that Du Xiaofu's current strength was achieved by condensing the power of all living beings in this world. It was the strongest power that he could use now, and he had already reached the peak of the heavenly sage realm. Under such circumstances, after exchanging a blow with the demon god, he still suffered great injuries. His physical body and primordial spirit were violently shaken. On the other hand, the demon god had only suffered moderate injuries. It did not affect his overall strength at all. With such a difference, how could Du Xiaofu not feel fear? Fortunately, with this power, he could at least fight against the demon god. At the very least, if he used all his strength to protect himself, it would be extremely difficult for the demon god to kill him. The world worships you, and the imperial chi on you are already extremely impressive. But if you think that I can't kill you, then you are gravely mistaken. The demon god's body moved horizontally in the void. After a few steps, he caught up to Du Xiaofu. Suddenly, a boundless blood-red mist surged out from the indomitable demon god's body. Like the water of a long river, it stirred up heavy waves and fiercely surged forward. This boundless blood-red mist condensed and rapidly took shape in the void. Finally, it condensed into the shape of a huge, heavy sword. As if it was real, it was held in the demon god's hand. If such a huge sword was placed on the ground, it would probably be longer than the 8,000-mile-long river in the middle state. Waves of dense demon chi spread out and undulated on the blade, emitting a ferocious aura. The demon god held the hilt of the sword with one hand and raised his arm. He moved directly towards where Du Xiaofu was and suddenly slashed down. Chi La! A terrible abyssal crack appeared in the void and spread out in an instant, extending all the way to Du Xiaofu's side. Before the saber had even landed, an endless stream of biting cold stellar energy had already passed through the spatial fissure. Like numerous sabers, they whistled through the air, slicing the violet gold light around Du Xiaofu into countless pieces before slashing at his body. Pu. Purple gold blood suddenly poured out and fell from the sky. Kill! Du Xiaofu shouted. The arm holding the tyrant shadow shook instantly, and the long sword made a sharp sound. Seeing the demon god's blade coming down, the imperial palace's dragon qi coiled and swept out. The profound qi in Du Xiaofu's body circulated crazily, entering the tyrant shadow to meet the demon god's attack. Roar! A huge golden dragon shadow roared and rushed out. It flew away from the sword and dove into the spatial crack. Qi la la! The golden dragon shadow collided with the gang qi of the long sword. The two completely opposite forces instantly made a series of clashing sounds. Whether it was the golden dragon shadow or the endless blood-red demon qi, they were constantly entangled with each other and consumed each other. In an instant, they shattered and turned into talisman runes that flew in all directions. In the next moment, the long sword in the demon god's hand collided with Du Xiaofu's tyrant shadow. Buzz, 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 buzz. A terrible buzzing sound spread out and attacked the primordial spirits of all living beings, causing their eardrums to be dizzy and their eyes to turn black. Clang, clang. In the instant when the sword and saber collided, Du Xiaofu's tyrant shadow was violently shaken and directly sent flying. His palm was torn, and he couldn't even hold the hilt of the sword. However, the momentum of the demon god's sword did not decrease. It continued to shake the sky and slash down at Du Xiaofu's head with incomparable speed. Caught off guard, Du Xiaofu didn't have time to make any counterattacks. The golden light around his body surged violently as he activated the first form of Fuyao, wanting to escape from the range of the long sword. However, what made him feel terrified was that when the long sword fell, the space seemed to be imprisoned. Under the first form of Fuyao, it was actually delayed for half a breath's time before his figure disappeared from the spot. It was also because of this that the demon god's tyrant shadow's sword had already landed on his chest before he could pass through space. Ah! Du Xiaofu let out a miserable cry as his sternum was cut open by the saber. His flesh and blood rolled up, revealing his throbbing internal organs. The immortal Xian body squirmed, but the demonic aura on the blade had invaded and covered his wound, causing the recovery process to be abnormally slow. Little Yu has a few comics now, but not many. After a while, he'll get more. When the time comes, he'll organize a small event and give it to everyone. Readers, please add Little Yu's WeChat public account, YF. Remember, it's the account YF. When the time comes, Little Yu will select some readers to give the comics to thank everyone for their continuous support. Rock Emperor. Rock Emperor. Hang in there. Rock Emperor. Down below, many living beings who saw this scene could not help but feel their hearts rise to their throats. Seeing that Du Xiaofu was no match for the demon god, everyone's hearts were filled with endless worry. Xiaofu, you must hang in there. You're the last hope of this world. Nothing must happen to you. Dad, you can do it. Du Tingxian, Zhen Qingchun, Du Xiaolin, Du Xiaohuang, and the others were also sweating in the palms of their hands, worried for Du Xiaofu. Everyone had witnessed the strength of the demon god, but they were unable to go forward to help. They could only let Du Xiaofu fight alone. Not to mention what effect they could play if they went up there. The 8 demon emperors, who were watching them from a distance, would definitely step in to stop them once they went up there. When that time came, more people would die in the tragic battle, so it was better to just watch the battle in the sky quietly. It could also be said that the battle between Du Xiaofu and the demon god represented the battle between this world and the devil religion. If Du Xiaofu really fell, this world would become a devil's domain, and no one would be spared. And if Du Xiaofu had a chance to kill the demon god, then the great calamity would naturally be averted. Therefore, not only did Du Xiaofu gather the faith of all living beings, but he was also the biggest hope of this world. Chapter 26:53. The demonic saber that was longer than the 4,000-kilometer-long river was held in the god-fiend's hand. It was suffused with a bloodthirsty scarlet color. In the entire world, boundless fiendish aura constantly rose and gathered on the demonic saber, causing it to emit a terrifying might. Du Xiaofu was sent flying by the attack. His indestructible Xian body was also broken, and he was severely injured. Purplish gold blood gushed out from the wound on his chest, and his flesh was torn open. Rock Emperor, hang in there. Rock Emperor, you must hang in there. Rock Emperor. Seeing this scene, countless living beings cheered in unison for Du Xiaofu. In the three continents' Kyushu domain, all the battles had stopped, regardless of whether it was the devil religion side or the many living beings in this domain. All of them were focused on the battle in the sky. The outcome of the battle between the God Fiend and Du Xiaofu could be said to determine the final outcome of this domain. However, everyone knew that even though Du Xiaofu had gathered the power of faith of all living beings in this domain, he was still unable to match the God Fiend's strength. Regardless of whether the God Fiend has recovered to his peak strength, there is no doubt that his current strength has already reached the limit of this domain, surpassing the Sky Sage realm. Even if that kid has the desolate nation's new seal and the imperial aura from the world's worship, he can only reach the peak of the Sky Sage realm. He is far from being comparable to the God Fiend. Nan Ru, who was beside Du Tingxian and the others, said. When Fui Bai and the others heard this, they all nodded in agreement. The gap between the two is indeed not small, but it is not so big that it cannot be surpassed. If that kid can take another step forward, he might really have a chance of fighting the God Fiend head-on. Crazy Bei Qi, who was also Ouyang Shuang's master, added, taking another step forward is easy to say, but it is extremely difficult to achieve it. Grasping a certain amount of the true meaning of the laws was equivalent to stepping foot into the heavenly saint stage, and in the heavenly saint stage, one had to constantly perfect the laws until they reached perfection. Only by mastering a complete set of laws would one be able to surpass the saint realm. With that kid's talent, it's inevitable that he would reach such heights. However, time waits for no man. Before he could fully mature, the demon god had already recovered, and the great calamity had already arrived. East deity sighed as a hint of worry flashed across her beautiful face. He stepped into the heavenly saint realm through the law of lightning and the law of space. If he could perfect one of them, he might not be able to defeat the demon god, but he would at least be able to fight him to the end. In the end, the odds of victory and defeat are 50-50. Fui Bai also let out a long sigh. After he finished speaking, he shook his head. It was as if he also knew that it was impossible to perfect one of these two laws in a short period of time. What Du Xiaofu lacked wasn't talent or hard work. What he lacked was time. However, the great calamity was ongoing, so how could he have the time to cultivate step by step? The demonic sect couldn't wait until then, and neither could any of the living beings in this world. Just watch, maybe there will be a miracle. Du Xiaoyao suddenly said with a burning gaze, even if boss can't defeat the demon god, it won't be that easy for the demon god to kill boss. That's true. On the side, Jin Xingchun, Jialo Jueyu, Qianguyu, and the others nodded when they heard this. Although the current situation was not optimistic, at least if Du Xiaofu really wanted to protect himself, there was still a certain amount of hope. As long as he did not fight to the end, it would not be easy for the demon god to kill him. As everyone spoke, their gazes never moved as they stared at the sky, at the demonic figure standing between the heavens and the earth, and at the young man wrapped in purple gold light. I can't defeat him. Looks like I can't fight him head-on, Du Xiaofu murmured as purple gold lightning flashed on his chest, removing the demon chi that lingered around him bit by bit. His wound slowly squirmed and kept healing. Wrapped in the purple gold light, his eyes looked at the figure that seemed to be able to pierce through the heavens and earth. His heart was abnormally heavy. After several rounds of fighting, he had always been at an absolute disadvantage. If it were not for the endless support of the Imperial Palace's dragon Chi, he would have died under the demon god's demonic saber. Even so, he still knew that he did not have the absolute strength to fight the demon god to the end. Therefore, he could only use the strategy of retreating in order to advance, and not fight the demon god head-on. But dragging this out is not a solution. Du Xiaofu released the power of his primordial spirit and swept across the Sanlu Kyushu realm, and countless scenes entered his senses. He could feel that all living creatures were looking up at him with anticipation in their eyes, hoping that he could kill the demon god, eliminate the devil religion, clear the universe, and restore clarity to the world. Therefore, even if he could drag it out for a while, he could not drag it out forever. There had to be an end to all of this. I've said it before, you'll be the first person to die after I recover. Just as Du Xiaofu was thinking, the demon god spoke again. His voice was loud and resounded throughout the heavens and earth. He dragged the blood-red saber in his hand as he strode forward in the void. As if he could see Du Xiaofu's thoughts, the demon god continued to walk forward and said, "If you don't want to be the first to die, I can't fulfill your wish. Wait until I've taken care of those cultivators at the saint stage and above, then I'll deal with you." As the demon god spoke, he brandished his saber in the void. Layers of demon chi rolled and drifted between the heavens and earth, setting off a boundless blood-red storm that swept wildly and attacked the heavens and earth. Aren't you just trying to force me to fight you head-on? I never intended to run away. No matter who dies between us, there has to be an end. But now, I'm afraid it won't be that easy for you to take my life. Du Xiaofu snorted coldly and said word by word. How could he not understand the meaning of the demon god's words? He was using the lives of other living creatures to threaten him. If he only cared about retreating and did not fight him head-on, the demon god would definitely attack those cultivators at the saint stage and above as soon as he had the chance. With his strength, a large number of those experts would die in a single strike from him. Du Xiaofu absolutely would not allow this kind of situation to happen. Moreover, although he knew that he could not defeat the demon god, he did not intend to run away. If he wanted to run away, he would have used his cultivation to break through the world barrier and hide in another world. The demon god would not chase after him. After all, once he went to the outside world, there were still the lords of the 3,000 great worlds and the dragon god who could kill the demon god. However, Du Xiaofu would never do such a thing. Wasn't the purpose of his decades of painstaking cultivation to protect the people he cared about? If he were to really run away, then how would those people from the Du family, the citizens of the desolate country, and his many good friends in this world survive the devil religion? Therefore, even if he knew that he was going to die, he had no way out. He had to fight to the end. Killing you is as easy as flipping my hand. Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, the demon god suddenly snorted and said. In his hand, the demonic saber shook violently. With a hum, circles of ripples appeared in the void, and terrifying spatial folds arose. It was like a vast piece of cloth that was being torn apart by a hurricane. The scene was extremely horrifying. The demonic aura boiled between heaven and earth, as if a large sea of blood was roaring. Immediately after, the demon god raised the long saber in his hand. Holding it with both hands, he slashed down with enough force to split Mount Hua. Chi-la, the space was torn apart like silk, emitting a terrifying tearing sound. A crack of unknown length was directly torn open, extending all the way to Du Xiaofu's front. A terrifying power rippled out. After a violent tremor, the space suddenly froze, as if it had suddenly frozen. Kill. Facing the demon god's fierce attack, Du Xiaofu shouted and stretched out his wrist. Ba Ying, who had been sent flying, flew back with a buzzing sound and landed in his palm. At the same time, in his mind, the nomological imprint engraved on his primordial spirit shone. Strange patterns flickered, with an indescribable mysterious color. Following the movement of the nomological imprint, large amounts of mysterious runes fluttered around his body, constantly changing and combining, releasing a mysterious and unfathomable power. The space in front of him was directly distorted, and the connecting space crack was squeezed out of shape. Then, With a boom, it collapsed. The space that was imprisoned by the demon god's power collapsed, allowing him to regain his freedom. Then, Du Xiaofu's body skyrocketed, reaching the 9 heavens, and was at the same height as the demon god's eyes. With a thought of all living beings, slay gods and subdue demons, Du Xiaofu shouted, and the long sword, Baring, was raised high above his head, pointing directly at the sky. In the desolate country's palace and in the human tribe's divine temple in the ancient wilderness, 2 long golden dragon shadows roared and rushed out. One rushed towards the long sword in Du Xiaofu's hand, while the other flew around his body and directly drilled into his body and disappeared. Boom! Suddenly, the whole world darkened, as if night had suddenly fallen, and there was no light. The violent sound of thunder fell, and a bright bolt of lightning struck down from the sky, tearing the sky apart, and landed on the tip of Ba Ying's sword. The bright bolt of lightning was like a waterfall, bathing Ba Ying in it, and fusing with the golden dragon shadow. The dragon shadow continued to grow, and then turned into a golden lightning dragon. At this moment, the long sword emitted a blinding brilliance and a terrifying power, like the shaking of the heavens, swept through the 9 heavens and 10 earths. Du Xiaofu stood in the air, and his body was wrapped in a bright yellow light and purple gold lightning. He stood in the 9 heavens, like a god overlooking the world. A powerful pressure descended, and an awe-inspiring majesty filled the heavens and earth. Rock Emperor! Rock Emperor! All the living beings could not help but shout in unison, looking up at the figure in the sky and kowtowing non-stop. At this moment, all the living beings felt their blood boiling, and their chests were filled with lofty sentiments. At this moment, everyone vaguely felt as if they possessed endless power. Even if they were facing the demonic figure that stood between the heavens and the earth, they no longer had the slightest bit of fear. They wished they could give up their lives and shed their hot blood to fight it. At this moment, all the living beings in this world were united like never before, and they shouted the name of the young man wrapped in light at the top of their lungs. It was as if the more they shouted, the more powerful that young man would be. Going all out? Seeing Du Xiaofu's actions and the demon god's demonic saber slashing down, his demonic eyes, which were like 2 black suns, rippled. He could not help but say, "No matter how hard you try, you won't be able to change the outcome of your death. Kill." In the sky, Du Xiaofu let out a long roar that reverberated in all directions. Ba Ying moved in response to the roar, shaking the void. The golden dragon roared, and lightning struck. Terrifying cracks and abysses were torn open in the sky. Ferocious energy whistled and swept through the air, as if doomsday had arrived. It was terrifying. In such a scene, Ba Ying slashed down and collided with the blood-red saber in the demon god's hand. Boom! A terrifying sound was produced, and the heavens and earth shook violently, as if the most terrifying earthquake had arrived. When the 2 completely different energies collided, they immediately shattered and exploded. The energy fragments danced in the air, and the void was in a mess. In the sky, the boundless space exploded. Under the impact of the energy that filled the sky, it spread and connected with each other, forming a terrifying black hole vortex that hung high in the sky. It tore and sucked fiercely, and it instantly erupted. On the ground, huge mountains rose from the ground, and pieces of gravel traversed the void. Pieces of the earth flew out and were swallowed by the black hole vortex, annihilating them into nothingness. However, the strange thing was that there was a strange fluctuation drifting out from all the living creatures. They were connected to each other, and they were not shaken by the black hole. On the other hand, the people on the devil religion side could not stand steadily, as if they wanted to ride the wind and fly away. Some cultivators below the martial emperor realm were directly pulled by the terrifying devouring force into the sky and were swallowed by the black hole. Rumble! The whole world was shaking, and pieces of space collapsed and then exploded, being swallowed by the black hole. It was in such a horrifying scene that a figure was sent flying backward in the chaotic energy storm and space turbulence. Large mouthfuls of purple gold blood gushed out of his mouth and fell into the void, only to be crushed into pieces by the endless storm. On the other side, the demonic body that stood between heaven and earth took dozens of steps back, and each step was tens of thousands of miles away. When his last step landed, a bottomless pit was formed in the ground. Puff! The light on Du Xiaofu's body had already dissipated. After flying backward for millions of miles, he stopped. His chest felt stuffy, and he spat out another mouthful of blood. His right arm had exploded, and the flesh and blood of his broken arm hung down like a piece of cloth. His long sword, tyrannical shadow, was nowhere to be found. On his body, terrifying wounds crisscrossed, and each of them went deep into his internal organs. His bones were broken inch by inch, and he was limp like a person with cartilage. His aura was extremely weak and dispirited, and he even seemed to be struggling to stand in the air. "You're really something." In the distance, the demonic god's voice echoed between heaven and earth. Du Xiaofu looked up and saw that in the distance, the blood-red demonic saber in the demonic god's hand had also disappeared. At the corner of the demonic mouth that seemed to be able to swallow the sky, a line of black blood flowed. The pair of demonic palms that were holding the demonic saber earlier had also split open, tearing open several ghastly wounds. "You're already an arrow at the end of its flight. You don't even have the power to mobilize the sovereign chi and the power of law. What else do you have to fight me next?" The demonic god's huge demonic eyes turned, and finally, he was no longer as calm as before. His words also carried a bit of fierceness. Looking at Du Xiaofu, the demonic god's expression was somewhat ferocious. A human brat who had only cultivated for a short few decades could actually injure him to such an extent. How could he not feel resentful? At this time, everything should end. You can be proud of yourself for being able to reach this step, even if you die. If this world hadn't turned into a demon's domain, your achievements would have been immortal and passed down through the ages. It's a pity that you no longer have the power to fight me now. The demonic god spoke sentence by sentence, almost as if he was gnashing his teeth. As he spoke, the huge demonic body moved again. His two legs, which were like pillars that supported the sky, moved quickly and charged in the direction of Du Xiaofu. As they moved forward, a demonic palm rose into the sky and directly smashed the energy storm that filled the sky. The horrifying black hole was also shattered by the palm. After letting out two wails, it collapsed between the sky and the earth. "With your insignificant power, how can you stop my rise? Now, let everything come to an end. If Lu Xiaoyu and Long Xian know that you've died in battle, I'm sure they'll mourn for you. One day, I'll go and find them. Everything that I've suffered in the past, I'll pay them back in full." The demonic god's huge palm swept out and grabbed at Du Xiaofu. Right now, that young man was like an oil lamp that had run out of oil. He no longer had the slightest bit of strength to resist. He was no different from an ant. He didn't even need to breathe. With just a thought, he could crush him into ashes. However, he didn't want to do that. He wanted to grab him with his own hands and crush him like an ant. Only then could he eliminate the hatred in his heart. Is it really going to end like this? Under the cover of the demonic god's palm, Du Xiaofu fell from the sky. His eyes were gloomy, and he couldn't help but mumble to himself. He was very clear about his own condition. The power in his body had been exhausted. It was difficult for him to even stand in the sky. Other than watching the gigantic demonic palm that covered the entire sky crush down, there was nothing they could do. However, his heart was filled with unwillingness. In the end, he couldn't defeat the demonic god. He couldn't protect the people he swore to protect. He couldn't fulfill the request of the ruler of the 3,000 great worlds. The final hope of this world was about to be destroyed. Who could stop the rise of the devil religion in the midst of a massacre? His family, loved ones, friends, and people were about to wither away. Chapter 26:54. Kyushu fell into a deathly silence. Everyone stared at the sky and watched as the gigantic demonic palm came crashing down on the young man's body. Following that, everyone's mouths erupted with shocking cries that shook the sky. Rock Emperor, Xiaofu, Dad, Brother, Boss, Third young master. Everyone's hearts were in their throats as they were shaken to the core. The figure that had fallen from the sky had tugged at their heartstrings. The Rock Emperor is exhausted. The demon god is too powerful. Even the Rock Emperor can't defeat him. But how can this be? He's the Rock Emperor. How can he lose? There's no hope. There's really no hope. The Rock Emperor has already done his best. Countless murmurs filled the air with gloomy expressions. Everyone could see that Du Xiaofu's aura was extremely weak. He no longer had the strength to fight. Facing the demon god's overwhelming demonic palm, he did not even have the strength to break free. However, everyone knew that the young man had already done his best. He had fought the demon god in the most terrifying battle for the sake of this realm and all living things. The Rock Emperor had only cultivated for a short period of time. It was already commendable that he could grow to his current level. However, the gap between him and the demon god was too great. If the calamity continued for another 100 years, no. If the calamity continued for another 10 years, 5 years, or even 1 year, perhaps everything would be different. However, at this moment, they could only watch helplessly as the demon god's gigantic palm came crashing down from the sky. They were powerless. After jumping around for so long, is he finally going to die? This time, there won't be any more surprises. To be able to fight the demon god to this extent, no wonder Lu Xiaoyu chose him. Many experts in the devil religion were discussing this. Even the 8 great devil emperors were no exception. They were all shocked. Du Xiaofu was previously said to be the greatest enemy of the devil religion, but many people of the devil religion disdained him, thinking that he was not strong enough to fight against the devil religion. With the devil god around, there was no room for him to jump up and down. Now, all the people of the devil religion heaved a sigh of relief and became serious. They were no longer as dismissive of Du Xiaofu as before. Originally, he thought that Lord Devil God would be able to capture Du Xiaofu easily. Killing him would be no different from killing an ant. However, no one had expected him to be able to fight the demon god to such an extent. Even though he was no match for the demon god in the end, he had still managed to injure the demon god. Furthermore, the demon god, who had always been calm, was now enraged. This enemy was indeed worthy of their attention. As everyone discussed, they all looked up at the sky. Would there still be a miracle? He was afraid that there would never be another one. Dad, Xiaofu, boy, little Xingxing, Zhen Xingchun, Du Tingxian, Fui Bai, East Deity, Beiqi, and the other Heavenly Saint Realm and Half-Step Heavenly Saint Realm experts had already rushed out at the same time. When the demon god took a step forward, they shot toward Du Xiaofu. They wanted to save Du Xiaofu before the demon god's hand really grabbed him. Kikik. Under the attack of Lord Devil God, do these people want to die? Seeing this, the 5 demon emperors could not help but laugh sinisterly. 6 Heavenly Saint Realm experts and a dozen half-step Heavenly Saints. Do they still think they are Du Xiaofu and can compete with Lord Devil God? Looking at the actions of these experts, the 8 demon emperors did not step forward to stop them. With the strength of these people, it was no different from a fantasy to save Du Xiaofu from the hands of Lord Devil God. Almost 20 people added together were not even enough to be swatted by Lord Devil God's hand. The demon emperors could not help but laugh coldly. They had already predicted the outcome of these people. Under the attack of Lord Devil God, they would most likely be severely injured. Those half-step Heavenly Saints would be crushed into powder when they came into contact with Lord Devil God's aura. Get lost. As little Xingxing's body moved, he spread out his dragon body and flapped his wings. Flames filled the sky as he attacked the giant palm of the demon god high in the sky. At the same time, East Deity, West Demon, Nanru, Beiqi, and Central Divinity also moved quickly. In an instant, they left Du Tingxian, Du Xiaoyao, and the other half-step Heavenly Saints far behind and faced the giant palm of the demon god head-on. The 5 of them shot out energy that filled the sky at the same time and gathered into one place. It condensed into a dazzling sharp sword in the void and shot toward the sky. Since you are all here, then let's die together. The demon god's palm did not move or pause as it pressed down. Vast energy surged and corroded the space, creating a palm-shaped black hole. Below, little Xingxing's monstrous flames collided with the palm. Patches of demonic qi were incinerated, but the large patch of flames also disappeared. The sharp sword condensed from the power of Fu Yibai, and the other half-step heavenly saints collided with the demon god's palm. After a loud explosion, it dissipated and turned into talisman runes that filled the sky. These two attacks did not cause any damage to the demon god. They did not even cause his palm to pause for a moment. They still carried terrifying fluctuations as they shook the sky. Run. Fu Yibai finally got close to Du Xiaofu's body. A stream of energy swept out from his hand and wrapped around Du Xiaofu. Fu Yibai suddenly turned around and wanted to escape from this area. Not good. The demon god is too powerful. I'm afraid we won't be able to escape. Shi Yao immediately shouted. At this moment, everyone had already fallen into the demon god's palm. With their speed, it was impossible for them to escape. That violent devil Qi rushed over, instantly tearing apart his physical body. Fu Yibai and the rest were the same. They were all injured in an instant. Within the vast demonic Qi, there was a strange wave of energy that froze the void, making it impossible for them to even tear open space. Go! Little Xingxing suddenly waved his hand, and a huge turtle shell rose into the sky. It rapidly enlarged and emitted an intense light that enveloped Du Xiaofu, Fu Yibai, and the rest. Boom! The demon god's huge palm slammed onto the turtle shell, emitting an earth-shattering explosion. Wong! The turtle shell trembled and buzzed incessantly. But miraculously, the demon god's attack did not shatter the turtle shell. It had withstood the attack. However, the people under the protection of the tortoise shell felt their chests constricted in the loud, buzzing sound. They spat out a mouthful of blood. They were seriously injured, but fortunately, their lives were not in danger. So it's Long Xian's item. It's no wonder it could withstand my attack. The demon god said calmly. He could tell the origin of the turtle shell with a single glance. Run! Taking advantage of this opportunity, the space in front of Fu Yibai and the rest silently tore open. They flashed into it and fled into the distance, not even daring to look back. With the demon god's strength, it would not take long for him to catch up to them. However, they could not abandon Du Xiaofu. Even if they had to risk their lives, they had to protect this youth. As long as he did not die, it meant that there was still hope for this world. If Long Xian's daughter were to die in this world, I wonder if he would regret what he did back then. With a cold snort, the demon god took a step forward once again. He waved his arm at the same time, and another terrifying palm came crashing down from the sky. Oh no! Little Xingxing and the rest could sense that the demon god's speed was extremely fast, and he would soon catch up to them. If that was the case, not to mention Du Xiaofu, none of them would be able to escape. In the end, they would all be unable to avoid death. I've done my best and leave the rest to fate. I've already done what I should do. I have no regrets even if I die. Let me go. The one he wants to kill now is me. Du Xiaofu said weakly after coughing out a mouthful of blood while being carried away by several people. He knew very well that with the strength of Fu Yibai and the rest, it was impossible for them to survive the demon god's attack. Even with the tortoise shell that the dragon god had left behind for little Xingxing, it could only save them once. When the demon god was prepared and attacked again, none of them would be able to escape. And now, the person that the demon god wanted to kill the most was them. If they let him go, there was still hope for them to escape. Although no one would be able to escape the massacre of the devil religion after his death, at the very least, it would allow them to preserve their lives for a while. Dad, don't say anything. I have something that my dad left behind. The demon god cannot truly kill me for a while. Little Xingxing said as he took Du Xiaofu from Fu Yibai's hands. A pile of elixirs appeared in his hands, and he stuffed them into Du Xiaofu's mouth like pouring beans. Then, little Xingxing chased the East Immortal, West Demon, and the rest out of the range of the tortoise shell and quickly fled with Du Xiaofu. After the 5 of them were chased out by little Xingxing, they did not dare to delay and flew in the other direction to avoid the range of the demon god's palm. Rock Emperor, you must survive. Only by surviving will there be hope. Purple Dragon Emperor. Hurry up, hurry up. Will there be another miracle? Can the Rock Emperor escape the demon god's pursuit? In this realm, countless experts were sweating as they clenched their fists and shouted in their hearts, hoping that little Xingxing's speed could be a bit faster and escape the demon god's pursuit. Kiki, don't you think that people will laugh their heads off if they still believe in miracles at this time? Du Xiaofu has nowhere to go. He's dead for sure this time. No matter how he escapes, how can he escape from the demon god's palm? The experts of the devil religion were also talking. Everyone's expression was stern as they widened their eyes, afraid that they would miss something. They all wanted to see how Du Xiaofu would die in the hands of the demon god. Right at this moment, a voice suddenly resounded through the heavens and the earth, and it came from afar. Brat, when I'm not around, you're already in such a sorry state. This voice was so loud that it spread in all directions, allowing many experts to hear it clearly. Following that, a powerful aura shot out from the void towards Du Xiaofu. Who's talking? Who's that? Could it be that things have taken a turn for the better? The beings of the Sanlu and Kyushu realms immediately looked up, trying to find the figure of the person who had spoken. However, what they saw was not a single figure. There was only a sea of fire that spread out rapidly in the sky and headed in Du Xiaofu's direction. Huolei Laozu. Ancestor. It's the ancestor. Why did he appear at this time? The people of the desolate country and some experts from the demon realm realized that the aura carried by the sea of fire belonged to Huolei Laozu, who was also the heavenly demon ancestor of the sacred demon temple in the demon realm. Countless people were puzzled. Huolei Laozu's cultivation was only at the perfected saint realm. If he appeared at this time, how could he save Du Xiaofu, who was being hunted down? With his strength, how could he fight against the demon god? At this moment, his arrival would probably only add another soul to the demon god's palm. For the entire calamity, it would be of no help at all. Ancestor, little Xingxing, who was fleeing at top speed, sensed Huolei Laozu's arrival and could not help but be shocked for a moment. Similarly, Du Xiaofu, who was beside him, could not help but reveal a look of surprise on his pale face. He knew that when he had entered a state of cultivation in the unsuppressed space, Huolei Laozu had left with Lei Tianhuang without saying anything. No one knew where the two of them had gone and what they had done. Moreover, everyone had been cultivating in that space for an unknown number of years, and Huolei Laozu had not returned. Even when the calamity of this world had descended and the devil religion had begun its massacre, he had still disappeared without a trace. Until today, he had suddenly appeared. Ancestor, why are you back? Du Xiaofu asked, unconsciously with a hint of joy. Boy, there's no time to lose. Quickly merge with the spiritual thunder. After the sea of fire swept to Du Xiaofu's side, it suddenly retracted and returned to the appearance of the fat old man. He waved his sleeves in the void, and suddenly, there was a walala sound. From various places in this world, dozens of balls of light flashed and rushed into the sky, quickly sweeping toward Du Xiaofu and the others. These dozen or so rays of light were multicolored and varied in shape. However, the one thing they had in common was that they all contained destructive energy fluctuations. Numerous bolts of lightning struck out from the balls of light, and they tore the space apart. As soon as these balls of light appeared, Du Xiaofu immediately felt a strange yet familiar aura. Spiritual thunder. 18 spiritual thunders. Du Xiaofu's eyes were filled with shock. After swallowing the elixir, his face looked better, but it was still pale. At this time, seeing so many spiritual thunders appear, his eyes could not help but show a strong sense of shock. He had never thought that after Huolei Laozu had left, he would return with so many spiritual thunders. Without thinking too much, he knew what he had done all these years. In Du Xiaofu's heart, he could not help but feel moved. In order to let him merge with the spiritual thunders and fight with the demon god, Huolei Laozu had done so many things in secret. Spiritual thunder. So many spiritual thunders. Huolei Laozu actually found so many spiritual thunders. Oh my god. 18 spiritual thunders. In addition to the ones that the Rock Emperor already has, there are at least 20 spiritual thunders. If the Rock Emperor merges with these spiritual thunders, I wonder if he can fight with the demon god head-on. There's hope, there's hope. A miracle has really happened. Rock Emperor, you must refine these spiritual thunders. Seeing this scene, countless living beings couldn't help but become excited. Their hearts, which had already sunk to the extreme, were instantly rekindled with hope. With these spiritual thunders that Huolei Laozu had found, the Rock Emperor would definitely be able to stand up again and fight against the demon god. This old immortal, where did he find so many spiritual thunders? The centipede dies, but never falls down. Du Xiaofu is really tenacious. At this point in time, there are still so many variables. Should we make a move and eliminate that kid together with the demon god? Let's not make a move for now. If we make a move, Fuibai and the other old fellows will definitely stop us. Besides, the demon god should be able to handle this matter. Within the devil religion, the 8 major devil religion were also shocked at the same time. Everyone's eyes emitted a murderous glint. Looking at the fat old man beside Du Xiaofu, they wished they could charge forward and chop him into pieces. Originally, everything had already reached the final juncture. Du Xiaofu had no way to resist and could only face death. Who knew that this old man would suddenly jump out and bring back a total of 18 spiritual thunders? With the help of these spiritual thunders, Du Xiaofu would only need a snap of his fingers to recover to his peak. At that time, the variables would be even greater. Nether water ripple lightning, meteor fall dipper lightning, 9 sun sky burning lightning. Seeing the spiritual thunders fly to his side with dazzling splendor, Du Xiaofu did not dare to delay any longer. Under the protection of Little Star, he sat up cross-legged in the void. The law of thunder and lightning was activated. 18 bolts of spirit lightning buzzed as they rushed toward his body and drilled into the space between his brows. With Du Xiaofu's current heavenly sage cultivation and his control of lightning laws, it was easy to refine these spiritual thunders. One after another, the spiritual thunders were sucked into his body. Under the suppression and guidance of the lightning laws, they were gradually refined. A vast amount of energy suddenly surged out, rampaging through Du Xiaofu's body, slowly filling up his empty body. The wounds on his body healed one by one, and his shattered right arm was also regenerating. On his body, a powerful aura began to fluctuate and rise steadily. Good. Very good. Kid, you really won't disappoint me. Huolei Laozu stood at the side and nodded repeatedly. Looking at Du Xiaofu, who had his eyes closed and was adjusting his breathing, his round face had an unconcealable smile. He was greatly comforted and had a rare look of affection. That kid should be back by now. After looking at Du Xiaofu for a while, Huolei Laozu looked away and looked into the distance, as if waiting for something. Not good. The god fiend has caught up. Right at this moment, Starry suddenly shouted loudly. Chapter 26:55. Little Xingxing shouted. He did not need to think at all. He flapped his wings and wrapped Du Xiaofu and Huolei Laozu within, protecting them tightly. At such a critical juncture, if the god fiend's attack affected Du Xiaofu's integration of spiritual thunder, the consequences would be unthinkable. She had just finished speaking when the god fiend's huge demonic palm slammed down again. After a loud rumble, the huge tortoise shell trembled violently. Little Xingxing, who was inside, spat out a mouthful of blood again. His little face was pale. Huolei Laozu's body collapsed under such tremors. He could no longer maintain his human form and turned into a cluster of flames. A few lightning arcs crackled, and his aura was extremely weak. Du Xiaofu, who was sitting cross-legged, closed his eyes slightly. The lightning arcs around his body also fluctuated violently, as if they were about to shatter. However, under the protection of Little Xingxing's wings, he did not suffer too much impact and continued to sit there. After being hit, the tortoise shell borrowed the force to fly away under Little Xingxing's deliberate control. In an instant, it fled thousands of miles away. Little girl, how are you? Huolei Laozu's weak primordial spirit fluctuation came from the faintly burning thunder and fire. He asked little Xingxing, "Old ancestor, don't worry. I can still hold on." Little Xingxing said. He folded his wings, and the radiance on the strange dragon's body dimmed a little. The god fiend is too terrifying. If not for the protection of this tortoise shell left behind by the dragon god, I'm afraid that one attack from him would have turned all of us into ashes. We would have died without leaving even a trace. If he attacks again, I really won't be able to hold on, Huolei Laozu said. His tone was extremely shocked. At this moment, he had already suffered great injuries and was directly shaken back to his original body. If not for the protection of little Xingxing's tortoise shell, even the aftershock of the god fiend's attack could kill him 100 times over without any hesitation. Old ancestor, how much longer will it take for my father to refine the 18 bolts of spiritual thunder? Little Xingxing asked, his eyes fixed on Du Xiaofu, who was beside him. Now, all of his hopes were placed on his father. The sooner he could refine the 18 bolts of spiritual thunder, the sooner he could get rid of the threat from the god fiend. It should be soon. This kid since the thunder spiritual thunder. He has the thunder with the thunder martial thunders and thunder martial veins. Thunder. Let is. Not only I, the let-ass. Tutu, patriarch, I'll send you out first. It's safer than staying with us. No, I'll stay with you. This kid can't do without my help. Without me, how can he defeat the god fiend? Huolei Laozu's voice was still weak, but his words were powerful and resonant. However, he could not leave at a time like this because Du Xiaofu needed his help if he wanted to defeat the god fiend. All right then. Little Xingxing paused for a moment, but agreed in the end. However, she was very puzzled. Her father might be able to fight against the god fiend after he had merged with the spiritual thunder. However, what does that have to do with Huolei Laozu? Given his strength as a perfected saint, he would not be of any use in a battle like this. However, little Xingxing did not ask such a question. With the passage of time, Little Star continued to fly within the boundaries of the 3 continents and Kyushu, while the Fiend Celestial closed in on it at an extremely fast speed. Fortunately, Du Xiaofu already had the cultivation of the Heavenly Saint realm, and he had mastered the spatial divine ability of the Vermilion Bird clan. He had narrowly avoided the attacks of the demon god many times, giving Du Xiaofu enough time to refine the 18 bolts of spiritual lightning. It's about time. Within the thunder fire, the power of Huolei Laozu's essence spirit rippled and released a ripple. His words had just left his mouth when little Xingxing saw a powerful energy fluctuation suddenly erupt from Du Xiaofu's body in front of his eyes. Rumble. Thunder rumbled as tongues of lightning shot out from Du Xiaofu's body. They were colorful and had different auras, but all of them carried the aura of destruction. The moment these lightning tongues appeared, little Xingxing's dragon body could not help but take 2 steps back, not daring to approach. Success. Within the thunder fire, Huolei Laozu cried out in surprise. It's really done. Little Xingxing was also very happy. He looked at Du Xiaofu, who was sitting cross-legged in the void, and saw him slowly open his eyes, shooting out 2 bright bolts of lightning. Little Xingxing could not help but cry out, "Old?" However, he stopped abruptly before he could finish his sentence. His tone turned serious as he said, "The god fiend is here again." Boom! Another huge tremor. The attack of the demon god landed, and the entire tortoise shell seemed to be about to explode. A terrifying pressure engulfed little Xingxing and Huolei Laozu, causing the 2 of them to feel a strong sense of danger at the same time. This was especially so for Huolei Laozu. He was already extremely weak. The cluster of thunder fire instantly expanded and was about to explode in the next moment, extinguishing his life force and turning into nothingness. Crackle. At this critical moment, Huolei Laozu only felt a large amount of lightning spread out around him, enveloping his remaining life force. There was even an endless amount of lightning energy pouring into his body, rapidly nourishing him. Not only did he not turn into ashes under the attack of the demon god, he recovered quite a bit. When he recovered all his senses, he was still in the tortoise shell. However, outside the tortoise shell, there was a figure standing in the void, standing upright. Who else could that figure be other than Du Xiaofu? Ancestor, you and little Xingxing should retreat first. Leave the rest to me. Du Xiaofu looked into the tortoise shell and said to Huolei Laozu and little Xingxing. He had already changed into a brand new purple robe at some point in time. It was stretched taut in the wind, flapping loudly. As he spoke, he waved his hand and was about to send Huolei Laozu and little Xingxing, along with the huge tortoise shell, far away, away from this area. Wait, Huolei Laozu shouted anxiously. A cluster of thunder fire flew out of the tortoise shell and went to Du Xiaofu's side. Then, it transformed into Huolei Laozu's chubby human form. His aura was greatly boosted, and his old eyes were also filled with the spirit of the past. Glancing at the tortoise shell behind him, Huolei Laozu said to Du Xiaofu, "Send this little girl away first. I'll stay and help you." Okay. Du Xiaofu hesitated for a moment, frowned, and agreed. He did not think too much about it. Although he did not know how Huolei Laozu could help him, since he said so, he was definitely confident. Dad, I'll leave on my own. You guys be careful. Little Xingxing glanced at Du Xiaofu, then at Huolei Laozu. She warned them, then flew away with the huge tortoise shell. She knew that she would not be of much help if she stayed. It was better to leave and let Du Xiaofu fight the god fiend alone. This would save him the trouble of being overcautious and not being able to use his full strength. After watching little Xingxing leave, Du Xiaofu also looked into the distance. The god fiend's figure was standing there. He did not attack again, but only looked at him quietly. Clearly, Du Xiaofu's recovery had surprised the god fiend. Not only the god fiend, but the living beings of the 3 continents in Kyushu were also extremely excited. The Rock Emperor has recovered. He actually recovered so quickly. 18 bolts of spiritual lightning. He refined all of them in such a short time. As expected of the Rock Emperor. Huolei Laozu is really a god. If not for him, the Rock Emperor would have fallen in the god fiend's hands. I wonder if the Rock Emperor can defeat the god fiend this time. The Rock Emperor. The Rock Emperor. Countless living beings discussed. Then, an earth-shattering roar erupted. Almost everyone was shouting the Rock Emperor's name, causing the whole world to shake. However, the people of the devil religion were all filled with hatred. They looked at Huolei Laozu with intense anger. Old fart, you're causing trouble for the devil religion. With 18 bolts of spiritual lightning, Du Xiaofu has recovered so quickly. The god fiend will have to go through a lot of trouble to kill him. What's the use of recovering? He's just jumping around for a while. He can't escape the fate of death in the end. Many powerful beings of the devil religion were discussing and gnashing their teeth. However, when the living beings of the 3 continents in Kyushu saw their expressions, they were indescribably happy. However, while many people with extraordinary intelligence were excited, they also felt endless worry. The Rock Emperor has recovered. Can he really fight against the god fiend? I hope so. Everyone's hopes are on him. But the god fiend is too powerful. I don't know if the Rock Emperor can defeat him. Many people spoke. They seemed to be very rational and not blindly excited. Their gazes were fixed on the purple-robed figure high in the sky with intense anticipation. Opposite Du Xiaofu, the god fiend's demonic eyes, which were like 2 black suns, stared at him, releasing billowing black demonic aura. So what if you've merged 18 bolts of spiritual lightning? It's still futile. It can't let you control the complete laws of lightning. Even if you've recovered in such a short time, you still can't escape the fate of death. The god fiend spoke, his voice echoing throughout the heavens and earth. You've said similar words many times, but I'm still alive and well. The god fiend is actually so funny. Du Xiaofu's purple robes fluttered in the wind. His words were clear and without much fluctuation. Although he said that, he knew very well that the god fiend was speaking the truth. The 36 bolts of spiritual lightning were formed when the Du family ancestor fell. They represented the complete laws of lightning. If all of them were merged, one could surpass the Sky Sage stage and reach an even higher stage. However, with the 18 bolts of spiritual lightning and the 8 bolts of spiritual lightning that Du Xiaofu had already merged, there were only 26 bolts in total. There were still 10 bolts missing. Because of that, he was still unable to fight the God Fiend head-on. One had to know that he had reached the peak of the Sky Sage stage with the help of the Emperor's aura previously. However, he was still no match for the God Fiend. Now that he was relying on the 26 bolts of spiritual lightning, although his cultivation had recovered, he was still unable to surpass the Sky Sage stage and fight the God Fiend. Sharp-tongued brat, I hope you can still laugh in the end, the God Fiend said as a cold aura surged forth, suppressing the entire space. A ball of black gas condensed in his right palm. The power of the God Fiend was vast and mighty, releasing a terrifying aura. Brat, you're no match for the God Fiend. Don't fight him head-on. Hold him back for a while. Your disciple should be back soon. Huolei Laozu, who was beside Du Xiaofu, said hurriedly. Understood. Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows and nodded. He knew that Huolei Laozu was talking about Lei Tianhuang. Previously, the two of them had left together. Now that Huolei Laozu had returned with 18 bolts of spiritual lightning, there was no doubt that Lei Tianhuang had gone to look for spiritual lightning as well. If he had returned, he would have brought back spiritual lightning as well. If he could gather all 36 bolts, there was hope for him to surpass the Sky Sage stage and reach a new stage to fight the God Fiend. Due to the suppression of the heavens and earth, the demon god had only just surpassed the heavenly sage realm. After merging 36 bolts of spiritual lightning, there was hope for him to fight the God Fiend head-on. He might even be able to suppress the God Fiend like his ancestor. At the thought of this, Du Xiaofu could not help but look forward to Lei Tianhuang's early return. Du Xiaofu, prepare to die. While Du Xiaofu was deep in thought, the God Fiend opposite him had already condensed a ball of black gas in his hand and shot it at Du Xiaofu. This ball of black gas was suffused with a dim light, and its aura was ferocious. Once it shot out, it was like a black will-o'-the-wisp, dragging a long tail, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws to kill. The terrifying force was vast and mighty, and the void rumbled and shook continuously. Retreat quickly, Huolei Laozu shouted and asked Du Xiaofu to dodge. In fact, there was no need for his reminder. Du Xiaofu had already moved, and the golden rock wings behind him flapped rapidly as he retreated rapidly. The space has been sealed again. Du Xiaofu's eyes narrowed as he whispered softly. As the God Fiend attacked, he could clearly feel that the surrounding space seemed to have solidified again. After using the first move of Fuyao, he was stuck in place, as if he had fallen into a quagmire and could not move. Even if he could break free from this restraint, the God Fiend's attack would have already arrived by then. In a hurry, large patches of lightning and thunder gathered in front of Du Xiaofu and condensed into a barrier made of lightning and thunder, which turned into a shield wall in front of him. When the ball of black gas bombarded, the entire lightning barrier suddenly exploded, shattering into dense talismans and mysterious runes that danced in the void. Boom! A huge explosion sounded, and the entire void trembled. The ball of black gas was also destroyed, and it returned to being an endless amount of demonic chi. Like a strong wind, it slashed horizontally and vertically, destroying everything in its path. The defense outside Du Xiaofu's body was quickly cut into countless pieces, and the violent energy finally bombarded Du Xiaofu's chest. Puff! Du Xiaofu's body flew backward, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He was seriously injured again. Huolei Laozu, who was behind him, was not affected much and was still in good condition. Kid, you can't fight him head-on. Let's stall for time first. Seeing that Du Xiaofu was injured, Huolei Laozu could not help but say hurriedly, All right. Du Xiaofu nodded. Before the God Fiend's next attack arrived, the golden rock wings on his back flapped, and he disappeared from where he was and appeared extremely far away. Trying to escape? Do you think you can escape? The God Fiend's arm danced in the void, and a terrifying force swept across and spread in all directions, confining the entire space. Then, he threw a punch at Du Xiaofu's position brazenly. Oh no! Du Xiaofu frowned and shouted, Oh no! Under the pressure of the god fiend, a large area of space was confined, and it was extremely difficult to use the first move of Fuyao. It's useless. Why are you resisting so stubbornly? The god fiend said loudly. His arms opened like a bow, and he threw a punch straight at Du Xiaofu's position, causing the entire sky to tremble. Break for me! Du Xiaofu shouted and stretched out his palm. Facing the boundless void, he clenched his 5 fingers and activated the god-binding grip. Boom! The restricted space in front of him suddenly collapsed, and the purple-robed figure shot out like lightning, narrowly avoiding the god fiend's attack. Even so, the astral wind brought about by the sharp and fierce fist still brushed past his body, causing his immortal Shin body to be torn apart. Bloody wounds burst out one after another, scarlet red. The purple robe he had just changed into was also incomparably messy. You can't escape, the god fiend said and waved his fist again, continuing to chase after Du Xiaofu. Then, a strange scene appeared in the sky. The god fiend punched down again and again, fiercely chasing after Du Xiaofu. A terrifying power spread out, and the void was sealed, causing the purple-robed youth to have no room to use the first move of Fuyao. However, his palm clenched fiercely in the void time and time again, and the restricted space collapsed again and again. Every time, he escaped from the god fiend's attack in a panic. Du Xiaofu's body was swept by the residual waves of the attack countless times, and he was already covered in wounds. Rock Emperor, hold on. Rock Emperor, you must hold on. Countless creatures clenched their fists, and in their hearts, they were screaming for Du Xiaofu. They did not want Du Xiaofu to fight recklessly again, as long as he was alive. As long as he lived, the devil religion would not be able to truly carry out the final massacre. The hope of this world still existed. Kid, how are you? Under Du Xiaofu's protection, Fire Thunder Ancestor didn't suffer much damage, but he was very worried. This couldn't go on. Just as Du Xiaofu was about to answer Huolei Laozu, his primordial spirit suddenly felt a strange movement. Following that, a simple and honest voice came from afar. Master, I'm back. Chapter 26:56. I'm finally back. Huolei Laozu was overjoyed and said excitedly. Du Xiaofu was also overjoyed. He used the god-binding grip again to escape the god fiend's punch. He flew directly in the direction of the voice. In his eyes, there was a muscular figure coming from afar. The figure was as fast as lightning, and it was as fast as lightning. This figure was none other than the disciple that Du Xiaofu had taken in, Lei Tianhuang. Did he bring back the spiritual thunder again? Looking at the bare-chested young man in short clothes, the god fiend who was chasing Du Xiaofu furrowed his brows. He instinctively felt that there was something unusual about the atmosphere. The aura of the honest-looking young man in short clothes was very familiar to him. His body is also a bolt of lightning. Could it be related to the heavenly Tao? Soon, the god fiend saw through Lei Tianhuang's identity. The aura that the young man carried was exactly the same as the heavenly Tao that had suppressed him back then. Thinking of this, the god fiend's huge and pitch-black eyes suddenly rippled with shock. In his heart, he also felt a little heavy. Master, receive the spiritual thunder. Lei Tianhuang ran quickly. With a wave of his hand, 10 rays of colorful light shot out in the direction of Du Xiaofu. These 10 rays of light were different from the 18 spiritual thunders that Huolei Laozu had brought back. However, they all had one thing in common, and that was that they all had a strong destructive aura. Woo-woo! The 10 spiritual thunders swept past. Du Xiaofu used the law of space and broke the space that was imprisoned one by one. Finally, they gathered together with the 10 spiritual thunders. Damn it! At this time, the god fiend could no longer remain calm. He cursed loudly and his towering body traversed the void, quickly moving in the direction of Du Xiaofu. Spiritual thunder. It's actually all spiritual thunder. Another 10 bolts of spiritual lightning, making it a total of 36 bolts. As long as the Rock Emperor completes the fusion, his strength won't be much weaker than the demon gods. Great! We can have a real battle. Even if we don't kill the devil god, at the very least, if the devil religion wants to rely on slaughter to rise, our world will have the power to contend against them. The crowd was shaken. While everyone was extremely shocked, they also began to cheer. For those who were close to Du Xiaofu, they were very clear about the concept of 36 bolts of spiritual lightning. It could be said that as long as he completed the fusion, there would be hope for him to surpass the heavenly saint stage. By then, the demon god would no longer be a threat. That damned old thing. He actually managed to find so many spiritual thunders. This is troublesome. It won't be easy for Lord Demon God to kill Du Xiaofu. Bastard! Many experts in the devil religion were discussing among themselves, and all of them had solemn expressions. All 36 spiritual thunders have been found. Damn it! The demon god roared, his anger bursting. Du Xiaofu originally had 8 bolts of spiritual lightning. Huolei Laozu had brought back 18 bolts, and Du Xiaofu had already fused them. However, if that was the case, the demon god was not afraid at all. After all, 26 bolts of spiritual lightning were not enough for Du Xiaofu to construct a complete law of lightning. In the primordial times, the ancestor of the Du family had used the law of lightning to surpass the heavenly saint stage. He himself had mastered the complete law of lightning. After the heavenly Tao had fallen, his body had turned into 36 bolts of spiritual lightning. If he lacked 1 bolt, he would not be able to form a complete law of lightning. However, now, the young man in the short-sleeved shirt had brought back another 10 bolts of spiritual lightning. In total, he had gathered all 36 bolts of spiritual lightning. Once Du Xiaofu completed the fusion, there was a great chance that he would surpass the heavenly saint stage and have a real battle with the demon god. Although the demon god was not afraid that Du Xiaofu could deal with him, the devil religion's pace of slaughter would be greatly hindered. Under such a situation, how could he continue to remain calm? Do you think I will still watch you fuse with these spiritual lightning bolts? The demon god roared angrily as his gigantic palm descended from the sky and smacked down at Du Xiaofu. The void trembled as its might surged. The terrifying power assaulted the 9 heavens and 10 earths. Amidst the waves of demonic aura, a hurricane seemed to have appeared between heaven and earth, sweeping and slicing wantonly, destroying everything. Under such an attack, Du Xiaofu quickly brought Huolei Laozu and Lei Tianhuang to escape for their lives. They did not dare to face it head-on. Go and protect my father. In the distance, little Xingxing called out to Fuibai and the other 4. With the gigantic tortoise shell, he was about to fly into the sky. He wanted to fight the demon god and buy time for Du Xiaofu to refine the 10 bolts of spiritual lightning. You guys had better stay here obediently. Seeing the actions of little Xingxing and the other 5, the 8 demon emperors snorted and leaped out to intercept the 6 of them. They knew what the 36 bolts of spiritual lightning meant to Du Xiaofu. If they allowed little Xingxing to take action and allow Du Xiaofu to safely complete the fusion, it would be a huge threat to the devil religion. Therefore, they could not just watch as little Xingxing, Fuibai, and the rest want to provide support. Under the attack of the demon god, with Du Xiaofu's current strength, it would be difficult for him to even escape, let alone refine the spiritual lightning bolts. Brat, stop running. Just as everyone was solemn, Huolei Laozu, who was beside Du Xiaofu, suddenly said, Du Xiaofu was puzzled. The demon god was chasing closely behind. If they did not run, wouldn't the 3 of them become living targets for him to wipe out? Why are you still running? Huolei Laozu suddenly cursed and continued, You have the lightning martial vein, and these 36 bolts of spiritual lightning were prepared for your Du family. If it were anyone else, they would be courting death if they wanted to refine them together. But you are different. Perhaps it would be difficult to fuse the first few bolts of spiritual lightning, but it would be easier later on. Now that the 36 bolts of spiritual lightning have been gathered, there is no need to refine them. Just use your lightning martial vein to devour them. There is no need to waste any time at all. So that's how it is. Du Xiaofu instantly understood Huolei Laozu's meaning and felt enlightened. Only now did he truly understand why the devil religion had been searching for the Du family with the lightning martial vein for so many years. They had even kidnapped Du Chong and controlled him, so that was what they were planning. Brat, listen to me. There will be a surprise. Wulei Laozu looked at Du Xiaofu and vowed. Okay, Du Xiaofu agreed, but he didn't stop running away at full speed. Since the remaining 10 bolts of spiritual lightning did not require any time to refine, he could devour them while he was moving. Perhaps after he had fused all the spiritual lightning, he would no longer be afraid of the demon god. But Wulei Laozu and Lei Tianhuang could not. Even if they were brushed by some of the attacks, it would be a threat to the two of them. Keep. Du Xiaofu let out a soft cry. Under his control, the 10 bolts of spiritual lightning drilled into his glabella. At the same time, the thunder martial veins appeared on his body. They were like veins that were climbing up his body. Buzz, at this moment, a powerful pressure suddenly rose between heaven and earth. In the blink of an eye, it spread out and suppressed the primordial spirits of all the living beings. This kind of pressure was even more powerful than when facing the deities. All the living beings felt their hair stand on end and wanted to crawl in awe. They could not muster any rebellious thoughts. It was like the power of heaven, pervasive and all-pervasive. Roar. In the Kyushu realm of the 3 continents, countless beasts let out muffled roars from their throats. Then, they transformed into their true forms and crawled on the ground. The human experts were the same. All of them were shocked and paralyzed, their expressions filled with reverence. In front of everyone's eyes, bolts of lightning condensed around Du Xiaofu's body, blooming with terrifying power. Red, yellow, blue, purple, green, cyan, black, white, orange, gray, brown, and so on. The thunder martial veins in his body, which were originally a single color, suddenly changed. Red, yellow, blue, purple, green, cyan, black, white, orange, gray, brown, and so on, continuously flashed and circulated. Chi. In Du Xiaofu's mind, the law imprint engraved on his primordial spirit also shone brightly. Mysterious rays of light twisted and turned, circulating continuously. Large patches of patterns lit up, forming a magical pattern. As Du Xiaofu's aura became more and more vigorous, a part of the pattern on the law imprint became more and more connected. It was orderly and perfect, giving off the most mysterious fluctuations. Walala! Outside his body, lightning roared and vibrated, spreading in all directions. Waves of terrifying power shuttled between heaven and earth, traversing the heavens and the earth. Following that, the aura of the purple-robed young man also started to rise violently. In just a moment, it had reached a level that made one's heart tremble. At the same time, the pressure that filled every inch of space also became abnormally strong. It made one feel as if they were facing a supreme and terrifying lord, making one's body and mind tremble. This is, among the 8 demon emperors, the 9th demon emperor trembled as he spoke. He was all too familiar with this kind of pressure. In the primordial era, the invincible supreme being had this kind of terrifying aura. Is he Du Xiaofu now, or is he the heavenly Tao? The 8th demon emperor also panicked and couldn't help but murmur, "What are you panicking for?" Suddenly, the great demon emperor's gloomy and hoarse voice rang out. He scolded the 8th demon emperor and the 9th demon emperor. Although their auras are very similar, their power is far inferior to the heavenly Tao in the past. Although Du Xiaofu has the Thunderbolt martial vein and has integrated 36 spiritual thunders, he has not integrated the heavenly Tao. He is still no match for the Lord Demon God. That's right. The auras are indeed similar. They are all fluctuations of the law of thunder. However, Du Xiaofu has only integrated the spiritual thunders, so he is no match for the ancestor of the Du family in the past. Although the Lord Demon God may have some trouble dealing with him, there will be no accidents. Du Xiaofu will not be able to escape death in the end. The 2nd demon emperor also said. Although his eyes were filled with shock, he still spoke in a calm manner. Under everyone's gaze, Du Xiaofu's aura kept increasing and became extremely terrifying. Soon, it reached the peak state when he had condensed the boundless sovereign qi. Seeing this change, Huolei Laozu's old face couldn't help but reveal a gratified smile. In his eyes, Du Xiaofu's aura, after a violent surge, quickly converged. At this moment, the 36 colored thunderbolts had already fused into one, turning into the brightest and most crystal-clear color. As the thunder martial vein was retracted, it quieted down in Du Xiaofu's body, and there were no longer any fluctuations. Apparently, he had successfully integrated the 36 spiritual thunders with the help of the thunderbolt martial vein. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact, it happened in just a few moments. Even when all the changes were completed, the demon god's attack had not arrived. The peak of the Heaven Sage stage, almost the same as when I had condensed the boundless sovereign qi. Feeling the changes in his body, Du Xiaofu muttered to himself. His current strength was different from when he had condensed the sovereign qi. Now that he had integrated the 36 spiritual thunders, it could be said that his control of the law of thunder and lightning was more perfect, and his strength had increased tremendously. For the sovereign qi, it was a borrowed power, which was the condensation of all the living beings' faith, and it was an external force. Such a change was really a pleasant surprise for Du Xiaofu. He didn't expect that after integrating the 36 spiritual thunders, his attainment in the law of thunder and lightning could reach such a high level. He could clearly feel that with a little more progress, he could surpass the cultivation of the completion of the Heaven Sage stage and enter a new world. But it seems that it is still not enough. Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows again, but his heart was still heavy. Although he had reached the peak of the Heaven Sage stage, if he fought against the demon god with such strength, the final result would be the same as before. Why can't I surpass the Heaven Sage stage? The 36 spiritual thunders represent the complete law of thunder and lightning. After the integration, it shouldn't be like this. Du Xiaofu thought quickly and thought about the key point. He seemed to have vaguely grasped something, but he couldn't really grasp it thoroughly. There must be some key point that he hadn't grasped. At this moment, the demon god's attack came again. The huge palm stirred up the boundless void, causing the heaven and earth to tremble. Open for me. However, this time, after Du Xiaofu let out a deafening roar, he saw a bolt of lightning thicker than the body of the demon god forming in the void. It violently blasted out and fiercely collided with the giant hand that blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Boom! A terrifying shock wave burst out, and the thunderbolt beam was instantly shattered, forming an unparalleled energy storm. The violent force drove Du Xiaofu's body and sent him flying into the distance. After a wah sound, blood spurted out, and the purple and gold color dyed the sky. As expected, I can't fight it head-on. Du Xiaofu retreated in shock, quickly retreating far away. Even though he had reached the peak of the Heaven Sage stage, he still couldn't defeat the demon god. After a head-on collision, he immediately suffered serious injuries. After retreating into the distance, a pitch-black hole appeared beside him. This was the entrance to the ancient barren space. Huolei Laozu and Lei Tianhuang flashed out from inside. Long before the demon god's attack came, they had been kept by Du Xiaofu. Otherwise, the two of them would have died in the terrifying energy storm. As expected, it still won't work. Even after the integration of 36 spiritual thunders, you still can't surpass the Heaven Sage stage. After Huolei Laozu appeared, he sensed the aura on Du Xiaofu's body and spoke as if he had expected this situation. Ancestor, why is this happening? Du Xiaofu was puzzled. Logically speaking, this shouldn't have happened. However, no matter how he thought about it, he couldn't grasp the crux of the problem. Ha 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 ha. Huolei Laozu didn't answer. After taking a deep look at Du Xiaofu, he suddenly laughed loudly. His laughter was crazy, but strangely, there was a hint of pride in it. When Du Xiaofu saw this, he was puzzled. Lei Tianhuang glanced at Du Xiaofu, then turned to look at Huolei Laozu and couldn't help but say, Ancestor. However, before he could finish speaking, he heard the demon god speak again from afar. After integrating 36 spiritual thunders, you're still in the Heaven Sage stage. How can you fight me? With this kind of strength, you can't avoid death. The huge face moved horizontally in the void, quickly approaching Du Xiaofu and the other two. Demon God. Wulei Laozu, who was laughing loudly, suddenly stopped. He turned to the demon god and said loudly, "Because of the murderous calamity you created in the primordial age, the heavenly Tao suppressed it, and it was obliterated by the invisible rules. You turned into 36 spiritual thunders and died in this world. That's how I and the boy next to me were born. It can be said that without you, we wouldn't exist." As Huolei Laozu spoke, he pointed at Lei Tianhuang and continued to say to the demon god, "Between us, we'll fight to the death. However, you thought too highly of yourself and didn't kill us in the dark palace in the clouds earlier, because you thought that after you recovered, we'd be no different from ants in your eyes." After saying this, Huolei Laozu paused for a moment, then continued, "But today, you'll know how stupid you were to underestimate us back then. How stupid. And you'll also pay the price for your stupidity. This price is very likely your life as a demon god." Ha 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 ha. Huolei Laozu suddenly laughed crazily again, as if there was an indescribable joy in his heart that had been suppressed for a long time. Not only the demon god, but even Du Xiaofu, who was standing beside him, felt a little confused. He didn't understand why this old guy was so smug. However, they were also very clear about what Huolei Laozu said. The demon god had personally experienced each and every one of them, and for Du Xiaofu, he had also seen the primordial age in the long river of time, so it was no different from experiencing it himself. Hearing Huolei Laozu's laughter, the demon god stopped and listened quietly with Du Xiaofu. He wanted to know what else he would say next, and why he was so crazy and proud. Chapter 26:57. Huolei Laozu's arrogant laughter made Du Xiaofu very puzzled. He really could not understand why Huolei Laozu would be so proud of himself at a time like this. After all, he had not surpassed the Sky Sage stage after fusing with the 36 spiritual thunders. In other words, his control of the law of lightning had not reached perfection, and he did not have the power to fight the demon god head-on. This situation could be said to be unexpected. His mood was already extremely heavy, but at this time, facing Huolei Laozu beside him, Du Xiaofu could only twitch the corner of his mouth. He was confused. Translator, Transin editor. Transin, the chubby face of Thunderfire Ancestor, was shaking as he laughed. His fat was rippling, and his long red hair was fluttering in the wind. He was extremely arrogant. Looking at his expression, it was as if he had defeated the demon god and withstood the great calamity. He was indescribably happy. What's wrong with Huolei Laozu? In the tricontinent Kyushu region, countless living beings were also dumbfounded. No one knew why Huolei Laozu was so proud. The Rock Emperor had clearly been injured by the demon god's attack, but he still had the leisure to be unrestrained at a time like this. Hee. I think this old bastard's brain must have been flooded with water. An expert from the devil religion laughed sinisterly. Maybe he was even squeezed by the door. The 8 demon emperors sneered as they spoke. When many living beings heard this, they all glared fiercely at the people from the devil religion, but they did not refute. Obviously, although they did not agree with the words of the people from the devil religion, they were powerless to defend themselves. Moreover, at this time, Huolei Laozu's expression did seem a little silly. "Grandpa, what's wrong with the ancestor?" Little Qilin stepped on the air and jumped onto Du Tingshuan's shoulder. It blinked a few times, and its face was full of questions. The ancestor is not a reckless person, especially at a time like this. It's even more impossible for him to do something he's not confident in. There must be a reason why he dared to say such words. Du Tingxian thought for a moment before replying. Although this old man is not very reliable usually, he does not drop the chain at a critical moment. Just wait and see. Who knows what kind of unimaginable things will happen next? Du Xiaoyao added. He looked at the sky, gold. His eyes were. He knew Huolei Laozu. He was not that Huolei Laozu was, he was he. Demonic god. In the sky, Du Xiaofu, Huolei Laozu, and Lei Tianhuang stood opposite the demonic god. After laughing for a while, Huolei Laozu stared at the demonic god's huge body again and said, "Do you really think Du Xiaofu can't surpass the Heaven Saint stage after integrating 36 spiritual thunders? In this world, the devil religion is not allowed to run rampant. And all of this will come to an end today." Opposite them, the demonic god did not speak. He just listened quietly. However, Huolei Laozu's words made him feel a little uneasy. "Ancestor," Du Xiaofu opened his mouth and wanted to ask about the doubts in his heart. However, he was interrupted by Huolei Laozu. "Kid, don't worry. I'll tell you everything you want to know." Huolei Laozu turned to face Du Xiaofu with his big belly. He looked deeply at the purple-robed young man in front of him. In that pair of resolute eyes, there was a rare, strong affection brewing, as if he was using the eyes of an elder to look deeply at an outstanding descendant that he could be proud of. When the immemorial heavenly way fell, it turned into 36 spiritual thunders. Everyone thought that as long as one integrated with these 36 spiritual thunders, they would be able to control the complete law of lightning and surpass the Heaven Saint stage. They would reach the level of your Du family's ancestor. If they were lucky enough, they would even be able to integrate with the heavenly way. However, that was not the case. Huolei Laozu's voice became light. In fact, when you were in the tomb of the heavenly way, you saw the scene of the immemorial era in the upper reaches of the Time River. You know everything. So you should also know that when the heavenly way fell, it didn't just turn into 36 spiritual thunders. It turned into 37. When Du Xiaofu heard this, he couldn't help but look at Lei Tianhuang beside him. He saw that the simple and honest young man squeezed out a smile at him. He even bowed slightly with a hint of respect. The scene of the immemorial era was still vivid in his mind. Naturally, he knew that the 37th spiritual thunder that Huolei Laozu was talking about was Lei Tianhuang standing beside him. However, Lei Tianhuang was different from other spiritual thunders. When he met him in the ancient, desolate, fearsome grounds, he had just awakened his spiritual intelligence. "Kid, are you ready?" Huolei Laozu looked at Lei Tianhuang and asked seriously. "Yes, I'm ready. I'm not afraid of death." Lei Tianhuang nodded heavily. The simple and honest smile on his face disappeared. His eyes became incomparably determined. "If you're ready, then let's not delay any longer. What needs to be done, we have to do it." Huolei Laozu chuckled and then looked deeply at Du Xiaofu. Immediately after, a scarlet-blue flame rose from his fat body with a whoosh sound. Arcs of lightning flashed and wrapped around his entire body. A terrifying temperature instantly spread out. The entire space above the sky turned scarlet red and was suffused with an intense heat. "Ancestor, what are you doing?" At the side, Du Xiaofu immediately shouted out. He could feel that not only was Huolei Laozu's body burning in the flames, but even his primordial spirit was also being smelted in the thunder fire. As the terrifying primordial spirit power continued to melt, the power of the flames became more and more terrifying. The space directly collapsed, like a handful of dry firewood burning black ash scattered down. Such a scene caused Du Xiaofu to be endlessly alarmed. However, before Huolei Laozu could answer him on the other side, Lei Tianhuang's voice rang in his ears again. "Disciple bids farewell to master." Du Xiaofu looked back and saw that the shirtless young man in short clothes bowed deeply to him, and his chest suddenly burst open. What followed was countless bolts of thunder and lightning that rumbled in the air. A large ball of lightning boiled and climbed all over Lei Tianhuang's body. His body was disintegrating, and the power of his primordial spirit was also rapidly dispersing. And the power contained in this ball of lightning was also rapidly increasing. "Ancestor, Tianhuang," Du Xiaofu shouted in panic. At this moment, how could he not know what Huolei Laozu and Lei Tianhuang were going to do? Previously, after fusing with the 36 bolts of spiritual thunder, the doubts that had arisen because he had not surpassed the Heaven Sage realm were immediately clear at this moment. "Kid, your disciple was also formed when the heavenly way fell. Although he is far from being as powerful as the other 36 bolts of spiritual thunder, it is undeniable that he is indeed the 37th bolt of spiritual thunder. And I, the ancestor, was formed by the lightning fire that was born when the spiritual thunder streaked across the sky. Therefore, my body also contains a part of the energy that was stripped from a certain bolt of spiritual thunder. Therefore, without us, even if you have fused with the 36 bolts of spiritual thunder, you still can't control the complete law of thunder and lightning. Only when we are together and fuse with the 36 bolts of spiritual thunder can you truly complete all of this. It is no different from the law of thunder and lightning that your ancestor of the Dew family controlled back then. Only in this way can you truly surpass the Heaven Sage realm and fight with the demon god. In the void, in the scarlet blue lightning fire, Huolei Laozu's primordial spirit power fluctuated and passed into Du Xiaofu's perception. Ancestor, Du Xiaofu murmured, and two streams of tears rolled down from the corners of his eyes. He understood. He understood Huolei Laozu's meaning very well. The immemorial heavenly ways law of thunder and lightning had surpassed the Heaven Sage realm and represented the supreme and complete law of thunder and lightning. Huolei Laozu and Lei Tianhuang were both a part of the heavenly ways law of thunder and lightning when it fell, and were essentially no different from the 36 bolts of spiritual thunder. Only when they burned their primordial spirits and wiped out their spiritual intelligence, returning to their most primitive state and fusing with Du Xiaofu, would he be able to complete the law of thunder and lightning. Only in this way could he surpass the Heaven Sage realm and fight with the demon god. After this, Huolei Laozu and Lei Tianhuang would completely fall. Ancestor, Tianhuang, all of you, stop. Du Xiaofu roared and waved his hand, shooting out two purplish gold rays of light towards the thunder and fire formed by Huolei Laozu and Lei Tianhuang in an attempt to stop them. Kid, prepare to fuse with the complete law of thunder and lightning. Huolei Laozu's primordial spirit fluctuation came from the scarlet blue thunder and fire. Then, the entire thunder and fire flashed and turned into a bolt of lightning after a crackling sound, drilling into Du Xiaofu's forehead. Master, I'll help you complete the law of thunder and lightning. On the other side, Lei Tianhuang's thunder and lightning ball also sent out a wisp of primordial spirit fluctuation, following which, the ball of resplendent lightning slashed down and suddenly plunged into Du Xiaofu's body. In the next moment, Du Xiaofu's eyes suddenly closed tightly. Everything in this world has its ups and downs. The cycle of karma also has a beginning and an end. The primordial heavenly Tao took action to suppress the demon god and engrave the thunder martial vein in the bodies of the descendants of the Dew family. We and the 36 bolts of spirit thunder all came from the heavenly Tao. Today, we fused with the thunder martial vein, which can be considered as returning to the heavenly Tao. Kid, don't be sad. I, your ancestor, can die without regrets. Master, to die in order to defeat the demon god. Your disciple can die without regrets. Kid, it's up to you now. Huolei Laozu and Lei Tianhuang's voices sounded in Du Xiaofu's mind one after another. When the last wisp of fluctuation was released, the power of the two primordial spirits finally returned to silence and disappeared into nothingness. On Du Xiaofu's primordial spirit, the law imprint was glowing. Mysterious patterns lit up and circulated with brilliance. A part of the pattern that was originally close to perfection finally closed, forming a complete pattern that emitted a mysterious light. Buzz buzz. After all this began, Du Xiaofu's aura suddenly rose violently and became incomparably terrifying. The thunder martial vein appeared outside his body. Streaks of lightning were bright and dazzling, releasing a destructive aura. At this moment, Du Xiaofu's entire body seemed to become illusory. It was as if he was in harmony with heaven and earth, resonating with some kind of magical rhythm. He just stood there quietly, but there was a mysterious charm that was indescribable and unexplainable. It was as if he represented some supreme principle of heaven and earth. This, below, countless living beings looked at each other in dismay when they saw this scene. They were extremely shocked. Damn it! Not far from Du Xiaofu, the demon god suddenly cursed. His majestic body stretched out and his palm shook the air, striking fiercely at Du Xiaofu. With his cultivation, How could he not see the changes in Du Xiaofu's body at this moment? If all this was allowed to continue, the demon god knew better than anyone else what he would face later. Therefore, he chose to attack without hesitation. He wanted to kill Du Xiaofu before he could integrate the complete law of thunder and lightning. I understand. I understand. The complete law of thunder and lightning. So this is what it is. Below, there were also living beings who shouted as they understood the key point. At this moment, Du Xiaofu's eyes were tightly shut, and he had entered a mysterious state. When the demon god's palm descended, a burst of powerful lightning suddenly appeared outside his body, forming a giant barrier that stood erect in the sky. Boom! The demon god's palm shook the world and slammed heavily on the lightning barrier outside Du Xiaofu's body. The sturdy lightning barrier shattered instantly, turning into large pieces of lightning runes that flickered in the air. Du Xiaofu was sent flying by the energy storm, but his eyes were still tightly shut. At the same time, the demon god's palm was also repelled, but it did not cause much damage to Du Xiaofu. What a terrifying lightning defense! It's so powerful. He can even block the demon god's attack, and the Rock Emperor is not injured. This is too terrifying. Is this the complete law of thunder and lightning? It seems like it's impossible for the demon god to defeat the Rock Emperor in a one-sided manner. Countless living beings looked up at the scene in the sky and were shocked beyond words. Previously, the Rock Emperor had been suppressed by the demon god. Even with the help of the boundless Emperor's energy and the integration of the 36 spiritual thunders, he was still not a match for the demon god. Now, with the help of the lightning barrier, he had actually withstood the demon god's attack. The gap between the two of them had shrunk to an extreme, and there was bound to be a fierce battle next. Ancestor, Tian Huang. In the distance, after Du Xiaofu had flown for hundreds of thousands of miles, he slowly opened his eyes and stopped in the void. Tears rolled down from the corners of his eyes, and he was filled with sorrow. Before the last traces of the primordial spirits of Hualei Laozu and Lei Tianhuang dissipated, they controlled their bodies and entered Du Xiaofu's body. At this time, the two of them had already died, and their spiritual intelligence had been obliterated. They had turned into the purest lightning energy and merged with Du Xiaofu's thunder martial vein, completing the most complete law of thunder and lightning. However, Du Xiaofu's heart was filled with sorrow. Over the years, he had worked hard to cultivate and constantly flipped between life and death to increase his cultivation, all in order to protect the people around him from harm. Today, Hualei Laozu and Lei Tianhuang, in order to be able to deal with the demon god, for the continuation of this world, resolutely obliterated themselves. This scene reminded him of the time in the long river of time, when he saw the ancestor of the Du family, who was the way of heaven, was willing to be annihilated and suppress the demon god for the sake of the world. The comparison before and after was such a similar scene. And Hualei Laozu and Lei Tianhuang were both transformed from the ancestor of the Du family. What happened today seemed to be the continuation of the Archean catastrophe. Du Xiaofu's tears poured down, and the scenes of his first encounter with Hualei Laozu and Lei Tianhuang flashed in his mind. Back then, when he woke up leisurely in the cave, he saw the old man in a blue robe with a big belly that was almost torn apart. "I'm your ancestor. Kid, aren't you going to greet me?" The old man rolled his eyes at the purple-robed youth. "I'm greeting." The youth's eyes turned, and he was suspicious. "Senior, are you from the Du family?" "Although I'm not from the Du family, I'm somewhat related to the Du family, especially to your ancestor, so naturally, I'm your ancestor." The old man seemed to be a little impatient. "Senior, if you're really an elder of the Du family, I should greet you and welcome you back to the Du family." A flash of light flashed across the purple-robed youth's eyes, and he said hesitantly, "But with your status, if I have to greet you, wouldn't I have to? What exactly is it?" "Don't hesitate. Since you're an elder of the Du family, and this is the first time you've met me, I should greet you, but I don't know if you have any greeting gifts or anything. With your status, at least sacred weapons, sacred elixirs, or something like that would be worthy of your attention." Hearing the youth's words, the old man was stunned. and he was in a daze for a long time. Kid, I've cultivated for countless years, but you're like this for the first time. The purple-robed youth was thick-skinned, and he kept asking for treasures, sacred weapons, and sacred elixirs, which made the old man gnash his teeth in anger. He secretly regretted that he did not slap this brat to death before he woke up. From the first time they met, he was wary of Huolei Laozu, but later on, he relied on him more and more. Huolei Laozu had accompanied him to the ancient wilderness ominous grounds, the tomb of Heaven Dao, and the demon realm. These scenes kept playing in Du Xiaofu's mind, and Lei Tianhuang, when they met in the ancient wilderness continent, he only let him comprehend the thunder martial vein, and he inexplicably gained such a cheap disciple. On the other hand, he had never really taught him anything. Moreover, he had obtained the sun thunder root from him. When Lei Tianhuang was comprehending the thunder martial vein, Du Xiaofu had also comprehended a large amount of thunder profound from him. Today, after years of hard work, Huolei Laozu and Lei Tianhuang finally found a total of 28 spiritual thunders, and they disintegrated themselves to help him perfect the law of thunder. Both of them died. Chapter 26:58. Forefather, Tianhuang. High up in the sky, Du Xiaofu raised his head and circulated the Xian Qi in his body, evaporating the tears on his face. He slowly retracted his thoughts and opened his eyes. His gaze regained its determination as he muttered, "Don't worry, I will not disappoint you. Even if I have to risk my life, I will defeat the god fiend." Du Xiaofu clenched his fists tightly and trembled slightly. All the aura on his body had been retracted, and there were no strong ripples being emitted. He looked extremely ordinary. Huolei Laozu and Lei Tianhuang are both a part of the complete law of lightning. Without them, the Rock Emperor will naturally not be able to fuse with the complete law of lightning. But these two people actually sacrificed themselves in order for the Rock Emperor to have enough strength to defeat the god fiend. Such righteous and awe-inspiring actions make us feel reverence in our hearts. Huolei Laozu, Lei Tianhuang. These two people's names will eventually be recorded in history and passed down through the ages. Send off the two heroes. Send off the two heroes. Many people sighed in admiration as they chanted the names of Huolei Laozu and Lei Tianhuang, sending off their souls. Forefather, Tianhuang, rest in peace. If the calamity can finally end, the descendants of my Du family will worship you for generations to remember your bravery today. Du Tingxian said softly as tears glistened in the corners of his eyes. Beside him, Du Xiaoyao, Du Yunlong, Du Xiaoba, Du Xiaojing, Du Xiaolin, Jialo Jueyu, Zhen Qingchun, and Fu Yibai all bowed towards the sky with reverence in their hearts. Du Xiaofu. Just as everyone was immersed in grief, the god fiend spoke again with a loud voice. His two black eyes emitted a sinister aura as he stared at the purple-robed youth in the distance without moving. There was hatred brewing in his eyes. At this moment, Du Xiaofu's aura was restrained and deep, but the god fiend knew that this young man had used the lightning martial vein to successfully fuse with the complete law of lightning, surpassing the sky's saint realm. In reality, his strength was not weaker than the god fiend who was suppressed by the power of heaven and earth. Do you really think that you'll be able to fight me just because you fused with the laws of lightning formed by the heavenly Tao? Back then, even Lu Xiaoyu and Long Xian could not do anything to me. Do you think you can kill me? Do you think that you are the Du family's ancestor? The god fiend gritted his teeth as he enunciated each word. I can't kill you. But why are you so angry? Du Xiaofu glanced at the god fiend and said indifferently. He knew that he was he. Back then, the Lord of the 3,000 Sectors world and the Dragon God, who the god fiend referred to as Lu Xiaoyu and Long Xian, had hunted the god fiend down in the 3,000 Sectors world. However, when the god fiend escaped to this world, the two powerhouses could not do anything to him because they were suppressed by the power of heaven and earth. In the end, the Lord of the 3,000 Sectors world persuaded the Du family's ancestor, the primordial heavenly Tao, to borrow the power of the invisible law of this world to suppress the god fiend. It was not until countless years later that the seal was broken. Du Xiaofu knew his own strength. Even if he had surpassed the Saint Realm, he had not fused with the heavenly Tao to mobilize the invisible law of this world and suppress the god fiend like the ancestor. However, with such strength, he was definitely qualified to fight the god fiend head-on. Ha 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 ha. Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, the god fiend was so angry that he laughed, causing the entire world to tremble. After a while, his laughter gradually died down. He looked coldly at the young man and said disdainfully, "If we were in another world with your strength, I would have killed countless people with one slap." Hee hee, is that so? Then why don't you go to another world? Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows and asked seriously. You? The god fiend was stunned. Of course, he knew the meaning of Du Xiaofu's words. If he had gone to another world, Lu Xiaoyu and Long Xin would not have let him go. If it were not for the uniqueness of this world, he would not have been able to escape from the pursuit of those two. Going to another world was the same as looking for a beating. The god fiend did not dwell on this question. Instead, he said, "Do you know why the ancestor of the Du family could not kill me and could only suppress and seal me, even with the help of the law of heaven and earth?" The god fiend looked at Du Xiaofu with a ferocious look on his face. "Because I have an indestructible body. In this world, no one can really kill me. Even in the other world, not even Lu Xiaoyu and Long Xin. So, the god fiend is so powerful. I wonder who was the one who was hunted down by the master of the 3,000 great worlds and the dragon god like a stray dog. He ran to our world with his tail between his legs and finally showed off his power here." Du Xiaofu said calmly without any expression. However, Du Xiaofu had heard of the god fiend's indestructible body. Back then, Fui Bai and the others had told him that almost no one could kill the god fiend. Of course, in the other world, with the strength of the master of the 3,000 great worlds and the dragon god, once the god fiend was taken down, any one of them could suppress and seal him, and it would be enough to consign him to eternal damnation. "Kid, you're courting death." The god fiend roared angrily. Violent demonic chi surged out from his body like a huge wave, crashing into the sky. In the sky, the red clouds that occupied half of the sky also surged violently with a rumbling sound. "You've said similar words many times today. Could it be that the god fiend, who is said to be indestructible, only knows how to talk?" Du Xiaofu's long robe fluttered as he snorted coldly. He was happy to see the god fiend angry. At the very least, he could see that the god fiend was a little afraid. Good, good, good. I don't have the time to continue wasting time with you. Looks like only when you face death will you know how laughable your arrogance is." The god fiend roared. His previous indifferent demeanor was long gone, and only anger was left. He originally thought that killing the purple-robed youth before him would be no different from squashing an ant. Who knew that there would be so many twists and turns today? First, this kid took out a brocade box. Under his all-out attack and the destruction of his physical body, he still relied on the defense formed by Fui Bai and the other four to preserve a trace of his primordial spirit. With the strength of the indestructible Xian body, he was reborn on the spot. Immediately after, the entire world worshipped him. All the living beings in this world were cheering for him, allowing him to gain the support of the sovereign's aura. He quickly rose to the great circle of the heavenly saint stage, delaying a lot of time. But at the final moment when he was about to be killed, Huolei Laozu and Lei Tianhuang returned one after another. They brought back 28 bolts of spiritual lightning, allowing him to recover to his peak state. After fusing with all 36 bolts of spiritual lightning, he also reached the great circle of the heavenly saint stage. He originally thought that this was still nothing to worry about. Who would have thought that in the end, Huolei Laozu and Lei Tianhuang would be willing to obliterate themselves and turn into the purest lightning energy to fuse with the purple-robed youth's lightning martial vein and complete the law of lightning, allowing him to successfully surpass the heavenly saint stage and gain the qualifications to challenge him. However, although the god fiend was furious, he still didn't treat Du Xiaofu as his mortal enemy. Because no one could kill him, not to mention Du Xiaofu. The final outcome wouldn't be like what Huolei Laozu had said. where he would have to pay the price of his life for not killing them in the dark palace of the clouds. If he wanted to kill the purple-robed youth before him, he would just have to spend a little more effort. In fact, the god fiend didn't feel threatened because of Du Xiaofu, but rather, he felt aggrieved. If they were in the outside world and weren't suppressed by the heavenly saint stage with his cultivation, he would have already slapped him into ashes. There would be no need for so much nonsense. But now, his strength was suppressed, and he was at the same level as his opponent. He had reached the limit that the heavenly saint stage could accommodate. Therefore, the god fiend knew that if he wanted to kill Du Xiaofu now, it would be extremely troublesome. If you want to fight, let's fight. Why waste time talking nonsense? Du Xiaofu snorted. With a flick of his sleeve, his body slowly rose into the air calmly. Du Xiaofu, watch how I kill you today. The god fiend's aura suddenly began to change. His towering body, which was like a giant of the heavenly saint stage, suddenly began to shrink rapidly. However, as his body shrunk, the aura on his body became more and more vast, even more terrifying than before. After a while, his originally indomitable body had shrunk to about 10 feet tall. Compared to Du Xiaofu, he was only half a body taller. But at this moment, Du Xiaofu could clearly feel that the god fiend's power had been greatly compressed and condensed to become even denser and more vigorous. That brass-colored skin, with bulging muscles, was still releasing an explosive power. Outside his body, streams of demonic qi, which seemed to be solid, surrounded him. The demonic qi undulated continuously and transformed into a scene of boundless ferocity. As he spoke, his body suddenly moved. He quickly swept out in the air, raised his fist, and smashed it down in Du Xiaofu's direction. Kill! Seeing that the god fiend had attacked, Du Xiaofu let out a roar from his throat. The void exploded, and terrifying cracks spread out. At the same time, an inexplicable pressure was vast and mighty in the heavenly saint stage, causing all living creatures to feel their primordial spirits throbbing. It was as if they were facing the arrival of a deity and wanted to prostrate themselves. Boom! Du Xiaofu moved brazenly and pushed out his palm. A bright red pillar of lightning burst out and expanded in the wind. In a flash, it became tens of thousands of feet tall and was pushed forward in the void by him, rushing toward the god fiend. Chi chi chi! This pillar of lightning released an incomparably terrifying aura. The space cracked silently, forming a pitch-black hole that extended all the way to the god fiend. In the end, the god fiend's fist smashed into the pillar of lightning. Boom, 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 boom. The god fiend's fist was wrapped in layers of pitch-black demonic qi. After the pillar of lightning was hit, it shattered into pieces. A terrifying vibration spread out, as if the world was turned upside down. Vast energy fragments flew out, forming a destructive storm that swept through the 9 heavens and 10 lands. The pillar of lightning in Du Xiaofu's hand finally dissipated completely. The god fiend's fist continued to move forward, directly attacking the root of the problem. After the dazzling pillar of lightning was destroyed, the two people's fists and palms collided with each other. Whoosh! A huge energy screen rose between Du Xiaofu and the god fiend's fist and palm. It was like the sun in the sky, shining brightly for tens of thousands of feet. This huge energy screen separated the two figures. On one side, lightning was boiling, as if it was going to split open the sky. On the other side, blood qi filled the air, as if it was going to split open the sky. Above the 9 heavens, the sea of lightning and the red clouds, each occupying half of the sky, were tumbling non-stop at this moment, brazenly colliding with each other. Terrifying layers of energy overlapped, causing the void to rumble and shake violently. The two diametrically opposite forces were linked with the auras of Du Xiaofu and the god fiend, adding to their ferocity. Boom! The two people's attacks landed and separated as soon as they collided. A terrifying vibration spread out, and both of them were sent flying backward. The layer of light between the two expanded rapidly, as if the scorching sun had suddenly exploded. Endless energy fragments scattered in the void, shaking the 9 heavens. Du Du Xiaofu was sent flying back thousands of miles, his robes fluttering, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The god fiend also retreated far away, letting out a muffled groan from his chest. His throat rolled twice, and only then did he stop the strong feeling of suffocation. You have indeed surpassed the heavenly saint stage. You have some skills, but you must die today. The god fiend's eyes turned, staring coldly at Du Xiaofu, and said word by word, "Kill." Du Xiaofu shouted, and without another word, charged toward the god fiend again. At the same time, he waved his arm in the void, and an invisible wave spread out. The law brand in his mind lit up, connecting with some profound dharma and logos of heaven and earth, the true meaning of the great Tao. Crackle. From the endless sea of lightning above his head, countless lightning bolts struck down, like rivers hanging in the sky, exuding a ferocious and unparalleled power that shook the universe. These lightning bolts were as bright as rainbows, and all of them carried a terrifying aura as they bombarded the god fiend rapidly. "Oomph!" The god fiend snorted coldly, and with a shake of his hand, the endless sea of blood in the sky churned and spread out rapidly in the void. Woo-woo! In an instant, there were bursts of whimpering sounds, like the cries of evil spirits, that made one's scalp tingle. Following that, huge evil spirits crawled out from the blood fog, covered in blood-red scales, with sharp fangs and sharp claws, and in their hands, blood-red swords. Each of these evil spirits had the strength of a perfected saint stage, and were extremely ferocious. The air was filled with the smell of blood, and the space seemed to be greatly affected, becoming as sticky as a quagmire. A series of ferocious roars came from the mouth of the vicious soul. It was as if an army of the underworld was marching out. The blood-red weapons in their hands were overflowing with vicious auras as they directly slashed at the bolts of lightning. Chi-chi-chi-chi. The weapons in each evil spirit's hand struck out, and in an instant, they shattered the lightning bolts. At the same time, they were blasted into a cloud of black gas and dissipated into nothingness. Why did the killing stop? This is not what I want to see. In this situation, the god fiend spoke again, and he could not help but frown. His gaze swept across every corner of the Sanlu Kyushu realm, and he saw that all the killing scenes had temporarily ceased. Whether it was the devil religion side or the countless living beings side, all of them were watching the battle between him and Du Xiaofu. It seemed that before the victor was decided, they did not intend to continue fighting. This caused the god fiend to be extremely dissatisfied. Lord God Fiend. When the many powerhouses of the god fiend heard this, they were all stunned. What are you all waiting for? Kill. Leave no one alive. The great demonic emperor quickly understood the god fiend's intention. His petite body floated up into the air, and he shouted in a gloomy and hoarse voice, which reverberated between heaven and earth. At the same time, his sharp claws, which were covered with black scales, moved through the air and directly pounced on little Xingxing. Kill. The other 6 god fiends also moved, and they respectively fought with East Deity, West Devil, South Ru, North Addict, Central Divinity, Du Xiaoyao, Du Tingxian, Zhen Xingchun, Du Xiaolin, Jialo Jueyu, and the others. Kill. The powerhouses of the god fiend recovered from their initial shock, and they all wielded their weapons and charged into the battlefield with the living beings around them. Thieves of the devil religion. Now that the Rock Emperor is no longer afraid of the god fiend, how can he allow you to continue being so arrogant? On the battlefields of the 3 continents in Kyushu, countless living beings moved at the same time and shouted sternly. In an instant, the curtain of a terrifying battle was lifted again. One after another, destructive attacks shot through the air and landed among the crowd. The power was bursting out, the mountains and rivers were shaking, the earth was shattering, the sky was being annihilated, heads were rolling, and blood was pouring out. Kill. With the Rock Emperor here, we are no longer afraid of the devil religion. Countless living beings roared and charged into the battlefield, and their auras were like rainbows as they fought desperately with the powerhouses of the devil religion. Spears and halberds were broken, and pieces of flesh and blood flew in the void. Bodies exploded into blood mists, and the heavens shook and the earth shook, and the sun and moon lost their light. A terrifying scarlet aura rapidly rose and filled the entire 3 continents in Kyushu, filling every inch of space. As the battle continued, countless powerhouses died and disappeared in silence. A large number of people of the devil religion died an unnatural death and turned into dust in the world. Under such a scene, rivers of blood flowed in the scarlet sky like veins of the earth. An invisible, strange power rose from the rivers of blood and enshrouded the entire realm. In the battle, the powerhouses of the devil religion were all affected by this strange power, and their auras rapidly rose. Their strength also increased greatly, and they became extremely ferocious. Chapter 26:59. High up in the sky, Du Xiaofu and the God Fiend were still fighting fiercely. Every time the two of them waved their hands, it was accompanied by a monstrous wave of energy that collided with each other, causing huge waves that caused the world to tremble. Du Xiaofu, how are you going to fight me? The God Fiend roared loudly. A ball of pitch-black demonic aura condensed into a solid form, breaking through the sky and colliding with Du Xiaofu's thunderbolt. When this attack landed, the two of them did not retreat. Instead, they advanced and pounced on each other again. This can't go on. As Du Xiaofu ran, he frowned and pondered. Naturally, the fighting on the battlefields all over the world could not escape his senses. Most importantly, he realized that as the fighting continued, not only did the strength of the devil religion's powerhouses increase, but the God Fiend's ferocious aura also became more and more vigorous, almost suppressing him. Du Xiaofu understood that this was the devil religion's method. They improved through killing and transformed in a sea of blood. If they were allowed to continue killing, then the strength of the devil religion's powerhouses and the God Fiend would become stronger and stronger. In the end, the living beings of the 3 continents in Kyushu could only retreat in defeat. As for the God Fiend, it was even more impossible for him to defeat them. Another powerful attack erupted, causing a terrifying power to spread in all directions. Kill! Du Xiaofu roared as the cyan spirit armor covered his body, wrapping him up tightly. At the same time, he charged straight at the God Fiend without any intention of dodging. You want to go all out? I have an indestructible body. What right do you have to fight me? Die! The God Fiend roared. His shrunken body moved horizontally in the void with incomparable agility. His fist moved through the air, wrapped in fierce fluctuations, and suddenly smashed into Du Xiaofu's chest. Die! Du Xiaofu also punched out, and it also landed on the God Fiend's chest. Dong dong! 2 loud bangs resounded at the same time, like the beating of a heavenly drum. A terrifying demonic aura gushed out of the demon god's fist and ruthlessly slammed into Du Xiaofu's chest. The azure spirit armor that covered his purple robe instantly exploded into pieces. The immortal Xin body also burst open, and a terrifying hole appeared. It went from his chest to his back, and a strong demonic aura rushed out with a whoosh. After Du Xiaofu's punch landed, it was accompanied by a clap of thunder. A bolt of lightning pierced through the demon god's chest, and the vast amount of lightning surged into his body, rampaging through his body and destroying his bodily mechanisms. After exchanging blows, both of them were injured. Hee, Du Xiaofu, you can't beat me. The demonic god sneered. He opened his mouth and sucked. Boundless scarlet blood energy rose from the ground, forming blood-colored pythons that burrowed into his mouth. A hazy blood-colored mist surged around his body, and it was frightening. The wound on the God Fiend's chest healed at a speed visible to the naked eye under the dense devil chi. Can I really beat you? Du Xiaofu's eyes narrowed. Under the effect of the immortal Xin body, the wound that was blasted open by the demonic god was also slowly wriggling. However, compared to the speed of the demonic god's recovery, it was abnormally slow. He knew that the demonic god was using the evil aura formed by the slaughter to heal himself. However, he did not have such an advantage. After receiving the demonic god's attack, The injuries left behind were extremely serious. Kill, kill. Below, countless killings were still going on. One after another, indomitable bodies collapsed, and one after another, valiant lives fell, falling from the sky. Blood covered the sky, and countless wails resounded through the sky. Living beings were crying in grief. The earth shook non-stop, and terrifying magical powers descended one after another. It was as if thousands of mountains were collapsing, and thousands of waves were roaring, boiling everywhere. At every moment, living beings were dying, and lives were disappearing. Du Xiaofu sensed a little and discovered that the various great factions had suffered a large number of casualties. The Desolate Country's Ghost Chariot, Silverwing Demonic Condor, Phantom, Blood Evil Vine, Thunder Eagle King, Mia Ming King, and many other experts had already died in battle. The Daoist sects Daoist Qingfeng and Su Yangzi, the Demon Vulture clans Yu Su, the Phoenix clans Feng Qi Sage, Feng Han, and Feng Wu, the Fangji clans Dongli Ruoshu, the Ancient Thunder Elephant clans Xiang Wushuang and Xiang Changsheng, the Scarlet Demon Lion clan Shi Hongtu, the Buddhist sects Ninefold Spirit and Hung Luan, the Black Ice Turtle clan Xin Tu, the Baifeng Divine Bird clans Bai Ho and Shuo, the Sun family's Sun Bufan, and countless other experts had all died in the Devil Religion's battle. The various forces of Kyushu, the Ancient Heaven sect, the Heavenly Music cult, the Golden Spear sect, the Saman Sword sect, the Heavenly Thunder Fortress, the Feihua sect, the Snow Wind City, the Sacred Flame sect, the Ha Huan School, the Profound Talisman sect, and the Beasts of Tianhuang Continent, the Golden Winged Great Peng clan of the Beast region, and many other experts had all died. Among these people, there were many Sage Realm experts who had died. It was the same for the Devil Religion. Large numbers of experts were killed, and almost all of them had their bodies and souls destroyed. Such terrifying losses could not be described as not tragic. And it was precisely because of this tragedy that mountains of corpses were piled up on the ground, and blood flowed like a sea. The evil aura vibrated faintly, constantly infusing the people of the Devil Religion and the Fiend Celestial, further increasing their strength. Du Xiaofu's heart was incomparably heavy. If this continued, the situation would become more and more serious. He originally had no way of truly defeating or even killing the Fiend Celestial. At most, they could only fight to a standstill. If this continued, it was very likely that he would be the one to lose in the end. I don't believe that you, the Fiend Celestial, really have an immortal body. Du Xiaofu's words were cold. His figure suddenly appeared in the air, and the spatial laws were activated. He directly disappeared from the spot and appeared in front of the Fiend Celestial. A palm rose into the air and ruthlessly slammed down on the Fiend Celestial's head. Following this action, a fierce thunder suddenly descended from the sky and suddenly blasted on the Fiend Celestial's head. Almost at the instant Du Xiaofu appeared, the Fiend Celestial also moved his fist horizontally and hit Du Xiaofu's body in the waist. Ga. The sound of bones breaking was heard. Du Xiaofu's spine was instantly broken and twisted to the side at a vertical angle. It made one's scalp tingle, and that fierce thunder also split open the Fiend Celestial's skull. Green and white things flowed, and the eerie bone stubble stood upright, glowing with a red and black light, and in the brain cavity, one could see a blood-red ball of light, like a bloody sun, with a strong bloody aura. This was the Fiend Celestial's powerful primordial spirit. Du Xiaofu, you have surprised me again and again today, but in the end, it's useless. You are destined to die. The Fiend Celestial's face was ferocious as he said hatefully, even if I fight with my life on the line, the one who dies in the end will only be you, not me. As he spoke, he struck out with his palm again and directly grabbed Du Xiaofu's lower limbs in his hand, then suddenly pulled. Chila. Du Xiaofu's body was cut in half at the waist, and the lower half was held in the Fiend Celestial's hand. Then, the Fiend Celestial's hand burst out with demonic qi and directly crushed it into powder. Under the effect of the Fiend Celestial's power, the crushed half of the body would not be able to recover in a short time. Kill. At the same time, Du Xiaofu also grabbed the Fiend Celestial's left arm. The celestial chi in the god's watchtower exploded violently, and the power of thunder lingered, entangling the fiend celestial. Zalala. Streaks of lightning flashed, wantonly cutting, and occasionally twisting the fiend celestial's left arm into pieces. The pieces of flesh fell into the void and were drowned by the lightning, shaking into nothingness. You are going all out just to kill me. And for the sake of killing you, I don't mind playing with you. But in the end, the person who will die will be you. The fiend celestial spoke again, and his eyes, which were staring at Du Xiaofu, were filled with intense hatred. He knew that now that Du Xiaofu had integrated the complete law of lightning, perhaps he could not kill him, but it would not be so easy for him to kill Du Xiaofu either. At this moment, because of the endless slaughter in this realm, his power continued to increase. This made Du Xiaofu feel a real threat, so he wanted to fight with his life on the line. However, he also thought that as long as he got rid of Du Xiaofu, everything would end. With the support of this realm, even if he were to face Lu Xiaoyu and Long Xian again in the future, he would not have the least bit of fear. Hence, the Fiend Celestial and Du Xiaofu's thoughts were the same. They would fight with all their might and kill each other, so that they could end things as soon as possible. Today's matter has dragged on for far too long, and he does not intend to drag it on any longer. As long as Du Xiaofu did not die, he would always be a thorn in the Fiend Celestial's heart. Go to hell, kid. The Fiend Celestial laughed maliciously, and his remaining right palm struck out fiercely towards Du Xiaofu's chest. Lightning Martial Vein. Rise. Du Xiaofu, who had lost half of his body, did not waste time with the Fiend Celestial. Instead, he shouted loudly. As his voice fell, there was a buzzing sound, and a huge lightning net appeared out of thin air, covering Du Xiaofu and the Fiend Celestial's heads. Following that, a golden light suddenly flashed from between his eyebrows and suddenly expanded wildly in the void, forming a huge redbone horse monkey primordial spirit which occupied the space. Roar! The powerful redbone horse monkey primordial spirit roared, and its roar split the void. Golden light filled the air, and the sky and earth trembled violently at this moment. It was also at this moment that the Fiend Celestial's palm strike had already struck the remaining half of Du Xiaofu's body. The violet robe shattered soundlessly and was obliterated into nothingness. Subsequently, the robust body rumbled as it exploded into pieces, and it transformed into an expanse of violet gold blood mist. Only his head remained, and it floated high up in the sky. You want to fight with your primordial spirit? The Fiend Celestial's eyes were shaken. Just as he spoke, Du Xiaofu's huge redbone horse monkey primordial spirit body crossed the void, turned into a golden lightning bolt, and flashed directly into the crack on the Fiend Celestial's head. The demonic chi that was like a rolling wave of blood was swept away by the power of his primordial spirit, and it successfully hit the Fiend Celestial's primordial spirit. I don't believe that you really can't die. Du Xiaofu's primordial spirit fluctuations came from the Fiend Celestial's brain, and his words were incomparably fierce. Do you want to die with me? You can't do it. The Fiend Celestial opened his mouth and roared fiercely. In the next moment, the majestic body floating high in the sky suddenly stopped moving, as if it had frozen. However, in his brain, the power of lightning and the blood-red demonic chi rampaged wantonly, and terrifying fluctuations spread out, forming a powerful shock wave that swept through the sky and earth. Pft, pft, pft. In the tricontinent Kyushu realm, the primordial spirits of many living beings instantly collapsed under such an impact, and they died an unnatural death. Oh no! Quickly protect your primordial spirits. Soon, a living being immediately shouted in panic. The boundless slaughter that was about to begin stopped once again. Whether it was the people of the devil religion or other living beings, all of them circulated the power in their bodies to protect their primordial spirits. Only little Xingxing, Fuibai, and a few other heavenly saints could not be affected by the impact of the primordial spirit power. How terrifying! Is this the power that surpasses the heavenly saint realm? The aftermath of some primordial spirit attacks actually has such great destructive power. Some people were secretly shocked, and their minds were trembling. The battle between the Rock Emperor and the Fiend Celestial is too tragic. Both of their bodies have suffered great damage. As for the great Rock Emperor, he only has a head left. I wonder who will emerge victorious in this final battle. I hope the Rock Emperor can win. If even he can't kill the Fiend Celestial, who else can? The Rock Emperor must defeat the Fiend Celestial. The Rock Emperor, kill the Fiend Celestial. You must return alive. Many living beings could not stop chanting and praying in their hearts. Everyone could see that this was the final moment, and Du Xiaofu and the Fiend Celestial could fight to the death at any time. The battle between them had actually reached the stage of the primordial spirit battle. The experts from the devil religion also raised their heads and looked at the scene in the sky without blinking. They were extremely nervous. However, with everyone's primordial spirit senses sealed, no one could hear Du Xiaofu's roar coming from the Fiend Celestial's cracked skull. Fiend Celestial, even if you really have an immortal body, I, Du Xiaofu, will definitely suppress you today. Du Xiaofu roared. As the terrifying power of his Yuan spirit spread out, the giant lightning net that enveloped the sky shrank rapidly. It pressed down and burrowed into the demon god's brain. Du Xiaofu, what are you doing? The Fiend Celestial's primordial spirit waves spread out with intense panic, as if it was experiencing something terrible. Even if I, Du Xiaofu, die, I will not let you off easily. In the Fiend Celestial's skull, Du Xiaofu's primordial spirit turned into a ball of bright golden light. Strange patterns were engraved on it, flowing with a mysterious light. After shrinking, the thunder martial vein also flashed with bright lightning, which was exactly the same as a part of the pattern on the primordial spirit's primordial spirit. As the thunder martial vein descended, it overlapped with this part of the pattern on the primordial spirit's primordial spirit and immediately produced an extremely shocking wave. Buzz, a mysterious rhythm was produced, as if it had triggered some kind of invisible rule between heaven and earth, with the most profound dharma and logos, the true meaning of nature. Du Xiaofu's primordial spirit, which had overlapped with the thunder martial vein, became extremely terrifying at this moment. Suppress, Du Xiaofu shouted in a deep voice. His primordial spirit twisted strangely and turned into a shape similar to the thunder martial vein. Like a net, it tightly wrapped the Fiend Celestial's primordial spirit. Get out of my way! The Fiend Celestial roared desperately. Layers of blood-red light shot out from his primordial spirit, carrying an extremely powerful force, wantonly attacking Du Xiaofu's primordial spirit. However, under Du Xiaofu's control, no matter how the Fiend Celestial attacked, he could only shake his primordial spirit, but could not break it and escape from such a trap. Ha ha! Du Xiaofu suddenly laughed wildly. His laughter was vast and carried an extreme sense of joy. Fiend Celestial, you provoked the dragon phoenix tribulation of the ancient times and even caused endless slaughter in this world. You think that no one can control you. Even the masters of the 3,000 sectors and the dragon god are helpless against you. However, I, Du Xiaofu, do not believe in this evil. Now, let's die together. Du Xiaofu, are you really not afraid of death? The Fiend Celestial shouted. His voice was hoarse, as if he was going crazy. For the survival of all living beings in this world, for the continuation of the bloodline, for those people I swore to protect, using my life in exchange for so much, everything is worth it. As Du Xiaofu's voice fell, thunder suddenly rose above his primordial spirit. Rumble. The part of the pattern where the thunder martial vein and the law imprint were compatible became incomparably bright at this moment. It was many times brighter than the usual scorching sun. Du Xiaofu's primordial spirit was burning, and a terrifying power surged, constantly adding to the pattern. At this moment, the most perfect thunder and lightning law in this world was constantly releasing a terrifying power. Large amounts of lightning struck down, attacking the Fiend Celestial's primordial spirit. The layers of blood-black demonic chi were shattered again and again. At the same time, the Fiend Celestial's primordial spirit power was also constantly being consumed. Under this kind of pure primordial spirit power competition, The strength of the two people was rapidly declining. Du Xiaofu, I will definitely not let you off. The fiend celestial roared crazily, containing boundless hatred. At this time, what right do you have to say such words? With my primordial spirit and thunder martial vein, as well as the complete thunder and lightning law that I control, as the price, I can exhaust you to death. I don't believe that no matter how strong you fiend celestial are, can you be stronger than the complete thunder and lightning law. At the same time, Du Xiaofu was roaring crazily. The power of his primordial spirit was vast and mighty, and the law imprint shone brightly. Waves of powerful thunder and lightning power boiled. This was not only the power of thunder and lightning, but also represented the supreme truth of the thunder and lightning law. It was a kind of trajectory of the great Tao, a kind of natural origin of heaven and earth, supreme. Du Xiaofu, stop. Du Xiaofu, I'm not done with you. The fiend celestial's primordial spirit let out a miserable howl as it struggled with all its might. However, under Du Xiaofu's madness, it was simply unable to escape the violent thunder and lightning shackles. As time passed, the terrifying fluctuations gradually calmed down. The fiend celestial's primordial spirit power was finally annihilated, and at the same time, Du Xiaofu's primordial spirit power had long been exhausted. The only thing left were some crisscrossing pitch-black patterns hanging there, looking especially like withered grass that had turned into ashes after being burned. However, under the gentle breeze high in the sky, it dissipated without a trace. Chapter 2660. The primordial spirits of the god fiend and Du Xiaofu fell silent and faded away. The majestic demonic body suddenly began to grow larger and larger, returning to its original indomitable appearance. Then, it directly fell from the void and crashed heavily to the ground. Under this smash, a huge human-shaped crater appeared on the solid ground. A large amount of blood splashed out, shooting into the sky and then sprinkling down like rain. The god fiend's body lay quietly in the crater, not moving at all. Above its skull, inside the crack, there was only darkness. There was no terrifying demonic chi, nor was there Du Xiaofu's lightning power. The two types of power had been completely exhausted and disappeared into nothingness. Dong, Du Xiaofu's remaining head also fell from the sky and landed on the bloody battlefield. Between heaven and earth, the tyrannical primordial spirit fluctuations that filled every inch of space had already dissipated. However, countless living beings were still immersed in deep shock. It was so quiet that it was a little strange. After an unknown amount of time, someone slowly dispersed the power that was protecting their primordial spirit and spoke softly. The god fiend is dead? The Rock Emperor seems to have fallen too? However, after these words were spoken, there was another long period of silence. Everyone stood there in a daze, unable to speak for a long time. After a long time, little Xingxing, Du Xiaoyao, Du Tingxian, Fui Bai, and the 8 demon emperors all came back to their senses and exclaimed, "Pops, Xiaofu, boss, brother, Lord Godfiend." Everyone was mumbling Du Xiaofu or the Godfiend. Then, figures rushed out and tore the void into pieces as if they had gone mad. They quickly rushed to the bottom of the battlefield between the Godfiend and Du Xiaofu. Xiaofu, Du Tingxian half knelt on the ground. His hands trembled as he held up Du Xiaofu's head. He stared blankly at the young and resolute face. Du Xiaofu's eyes were still glaring fiercely. His pupils had lost their luster, but they still reflected a resolute expression. Xiaofu, Du Tingxuan's hands couldn't help but tremble. His 10 fingers trembled, and tears covered his face in an instant. Waves of painful sobs came from his throat. Father, boss, third brother, young patriarch, little Xingxing, Du Xiaoyao, Du Yunlong, Jin Xingchun, Jialo Jueyu, Fui Bai, and the others all cried out in pain. Du Xiaolin and Du Xiaohuang even burst into heart-wrenching sobs. With their strengths, they were entirely capable of noticing that the energy of Du Xiaofu's soul core had vanished completely at this moment, and only his head remained intact. The upper and lower parts of his body had been shattered by the god fiend. Even his immortal Shin body didn't have time to recover. All of this proved that the young man had already passed away. Rock Emperor. Has the Rock Emperor fallen? That's impossible. How could he have fallen? This must be fake. That's the Rock Emperor. How could the Rock Emperor die? It can't be. How could he die? Soon, the other experts in the Kyushu realm of the three continents were also alarmed. The entire realm was in an uproar, and countless people were shouting loudly. However, the irrefutable fact was right in front of them. Even if countless people were unwilling to admit it, they had no choice but to accept it in the end. In an instant, endless sorrow and pain gushed out from the bottom of their hearts. The Rock Emperor has fallen. The Rock Emperor has fallen. In order to defeat the God Fiend, the Rock Emperor died together with the God Fiend. The Rock Emperor. Many creatures cried out in grief, their hearts filled with grief. No. Dongli Qingqing, Sumushin, Ouyang Shuang, Qi Yeshi, Yizi Jin, Zixian, Sima Muhan, Morong Yurua, and the other women's delicate bodies trembled. They felt as if their hearts had been hit by a heavy hammer, and they almost fell down. Du Xiaoqing, Little Tiger Du, Dai Xingyu, Yi Piaoling, Qian Guyu, and the others felt as if their hearts had been ruthlessly squeezed by an invisible hand, and the pain was excruciating. Meanwhile, all the remaining members of the forces that were close to Du Xiaofu gathered toward the battlefield from all directions. The school of Mo, the Confucian school, the school of Farmer, the school of Yinyang, the school of Taoism, the school of Fong, the Phoenix clan, the Human Divine Palace and the Beast Alliance of the Ancient Wilderness Continent, the Beasts of the Tianhuang Continent, the Ancient Heaven Sect, the Saman Sword Sect, the Heavenly Music Cult, the Heavenly Thunder Fortress, the Golden Spear Sect, the Hundred Flowers Gate, the Snow-Blowing City, the Holy Flame Sect, the Haohuan School, the Mystic, Talisman Alliance, Tianwu Academy, the Seven-Star Hall, the Golden Wing Great Rocks, and countless other experts swiftly moved and surrounded Du Tingxian, Du Xiaoyao, and the others. Everyone's eyes were filled with indescribable sadness and heartache. They looked at the young man's head, and tears streamed down their faces. When the God Fiend recovered, this young man had never retreated and had fought with his life on the line. If not for him, the war in this world would have ended long ago. None of the living beings in this world would have been able to keep their lives, and the entire world would have turned into a demonic domain. No one could say for sure when it started, but everyone naturally regarded him as the pillar of this world. As long as he was around, everyone had enough confidence to fight and fight against the devil religion. He was not only the Rock Emperor of the desolate country, but also the Rock Emperor of all living beings in this world. For the continuation of the bloodline of all living beings, for the ultimate survival of this world, he fought the God Fiend alone. However, he also knew that the God Fiend was very difficult to kill and could only fight to the death. In the end, he did it. The God Fiend was dead. His primordial spirit was destroyed, and his demonic body collapsed. Every living being had seen it with their own eyes. With the death of the God Fiend, the calamity in this world could no longer cause too big of a commotion. With just the remaining 8 demon emperors, the people of the devil religion had lost their fighting spirit without the God Fiend's leadership. How could they fight against the many living beings who were not afraid of death? The end of the calamity was only a matter of time. However, the Rock Emperor would never see such a day again. Send off the Rock Emperor. Some living beings suddenly knelt down and bowed deeply. This bow represented the utmost respect in their hearts. This bow represented the deep sorrow in their hearts. This bow was perfectly justified. Send off the Rock Emperor. Send off the Rock Emperor. Countless living beings knelt on the ground like waves and bowed deeply towards the young man's head. Almost everyone was sobbing in indescribable pain. Those sounds of farewell shook the world, and it caused the entire world to weep for them. No one stood up for a long time. Only a strong sense of sorrow spread through the crowd. It's time to make the devil religion pay the ultimate price. After a long time, someone suddenly gritted their teeth and said this. After another long period of silence, The creatures suddenly stood up one after another. Their eyes were about to split apart, and their killing intent was shooting out. The god-fiend is dead. None of the people of the devil religion can be spared. Use the blood of all the people of the devil religion as a sacrifice to the soul of the Rock Emperor in heaven. Avenge the Rock Emperor. Blood for blood. Kill the bastards of the devil religion. Show no mercy. Eliminate the devil religion. Blood for blood. Avenge the Rock Emperor. Blood for blood. Kill. In an instant, the whole world was in an uproar. Everyone's hair danced wildly, and their eyes were bloodshot. They howled and charged into the battlefield. The weapons in their hands emitted dazzling rays of scorching heat. Kill. Use the blood of the people of the devil religion as a sacrifice to the Rock Emperor. A living being stepped forward, allowing the sabers of the people of the devil religion to cut into his chest. The spear in his hand pierced through the void and ruthlessly stabbed into the eyes of the people of the devil religion. The force of the attack blew up more than half of the people's heads and destroyed their primordial spirits. Kill. Avenge the Rock Emperor. Blood for blood. Someone slashed his saber across the sky. A terrifying saber ray shot out and shattered the void. The heads of several people of the devil religion were chopped off and rolled on the ground. Devil blood spurted out from their severed necks like fountains. Kill the bastards of the devil religion. Leave no one alive. Kill. Another living being waved his sword. A bright sword ray rose from the void and pierced through the throat of the people of the devil religion. When the sword ray dissipated, the tip of the sword flashed with cold light and pierced through the back of the head of the people of the devil religion. The living beings of the 3 continents, Kyushu, and other realms seemed to have gone mad. They charged at the people of the devil religion without any regard for their lives. Everyone's goal was the same: kill the people of the devil religion as a sacrifice to the Rock Emperor. Blood for blood. Dongli Qingqing, Sumushin, Ouyang Shuang, Qi Yeshi, Easy Jin, Zishuan, Sima Muhan, and the other girls, as well as Du Shaoqing, Little Tiger Du, Dai Xingyu, and the others, had already entered the battlefield and started a bloody battle. On the battlefield, there were only 2 places that were strangely peaceful. One was around Du Xiaofu's remaining head. Du Xiaoyao, Du Tingxian, Zheng Qingchun, Fui Bai, Jialo Jueyu, and the other 20 experts were still immersed in deep pain. Xiaofu, don't worry, we are still here for you. Du Tingshuan's lips trembled as he gently put Du Xiaofu's head into his Qinkuan bag. Then, he stood up and shook the Thunder Dragon's spear in his hand, letting out an earth-shattering dragon roar. The demonic god is dead, and none of the 8 demonic emperors can escape. I want all the bastards of the devil religion to pay for my father's life. Little Xingxing's dress fluttered, and the mark between her eyebrows gave off a strange glow. Layers of murderous intent burst out from her eyes. I won't let any of the bastards of the devil religion go. Du Xiaoyao clenched her fists, and her eyes were red as she stared at the demonic god's majestic body on the ground. There, the 8 demonic emperors and the others were also gathered around. Their hearts were in turmoil, and grief was spreading. Sensing the killing intent of Du Tingxian, Little Xingxing, Du Xiaoyao, and the others, the great demonic emperor slowly turned his face and looked at them. What a good Du Xiaofu, what a good little bastard. The second demonic emperor spoke in a stupefied manner. Looking at the demonic god's body on the ground, he couldn't help but gnash his teeth in anger. Du Xiaofu's death is not regrettable, but everyone in this world must be buried with the Lord Demonic God. The 4th demonic emperor said hatefully, almost going crazy. The Lord Demonic God is no longer here. Can our devil religion still fight? At this moment, the 9th demonic emperor's weak voice sounded, as if he was in despair. And it was this sentence that attracted the great demonic emperor, the 2nd demonic emperor, the 4th demonic emperor, the 5th demonic emperor, and the others to glare at him furiously. In particular, the great demonic emperor's gray eyes were fixed on the 9th demonic emperor, as if the god of death was staring at him. A terrifying murderous intent burst out, and the 9th demonic emperor couldn't help but take a few steps back. Then, he tripped and fell on his butt in panic. It's impossible. The Lord Demonic God is immortal. How could Du Xiaofu kill him? The eighth demonic emperor murmured with a look of disbelief. As soon as he finished speaking, the rest of the demonic emperors fell into silence. They didn't believe that the Lord Demonic God would really die, just like the living beings in the three continents, Kyushu, and other realms didn't believe that Du Xiaofu would die. But now, everything seemed to have become a foregone conclusion. No matter how many doubts, puzzlement, anger, and unwillingness they had in their hearts, they had no choice but to accept reality and recognize the current situation. No matter what, even if we can't kill everyone in this world, we must make them pay the heaviest price. Let's start with the desolate country. Even if we die, we must uproot the forces in the desolate country and make them disappear from this world, leaving no trace behind. The great demonic emperor said in a gloomy and hoarse voice, his eyes full of hatred. That's right. After the desolate country, we will wipe out all the forces related to Du Xiaofu and make them disappear from this world, even if our devil religion is defeated in the end. So what? After thousands of years, who will still remember them? Who will still remember the desolate country? Who will still remember Du Xiaofu? The second demonic emperor punched out fiercely, creating a black hole in the void. Kiki, that's how it should be. Even if Du Xiaofu dies, he won't be able to get his final piece. Wipe out the desolate country and let him be forgotten in the long river of time. Let him lament in the underworld and know that everything he has done today was not worth it. The fourth demonic emperor laughed sinisterly. It seemed that just thinking about that scene made him feel endless pleasure. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a light voice refuted him. I don't know how the brains of the people in the devil religion work. They are indeed different from ordinary people. The usually cold and taciturn Qiangu stepped forward and spoke softly at this time. His white robe was already soaked in blood. His hair hung messily behind his back, dripping with blood. His usual elegant demeanor was nowhere to be seen at this time. However, his eyes were still bright and sharp, with a frightening majesty. Do you think that the Rock Emperor perished together with the demon god for the sake of his reputation? Ridiculous. Qiangu said calmly. As he spoke, he walked toward the 8 demonic emperors. With every step he took, the aura on his body grew rapidly, climbing to an extremely terrifying level. Why waste time talking to them? Let's kill them first. Du Xiaoyao snorted coldly. His body shot forward, and the red-bone horse monkey's body instantly appeared. Boundless golden light burst out, causing the void to tremble. Kiki, you've come at the right time. The destruction of the desolate country will start with the few of you. The second demonic emperor laughed coldly and moved quickly toward Qiangu, Du Xiaoyao, and the others. Kill. Little Xingxing, Fui Bai, Du Yunlong, Du Xiaojing, Du Xiaolin, and the others shouted at the same time. The killing intent that they had accumulated for a long time gushed out crazily. In the blink of an eye, they collided with the 8 demonic emperors of the devil religion. A terrifying battle began again. East Deity, West Demon, South Ru, North Addict, Central Divinity, and Little Xingxing each fought fiercely with a demonic emperor. Du Tingxian, Jialo Jueyu, Jin Qingchun, and the other half-step heavenly saints joined forces and tightly tied down 2 demonic emperors. 14 half-step heavenly saints, 14 heavenly saints, and 1 demonic emperor, 28 top powerhouses, engaged in the most intense battle. One terrifying divine ability after another was unleashed, shattering the boundless void. Mountains collapsed one after another, pieces of the earth cracked open, and rivers of blood were blasted dry. Kiki, how dare you? A mere half-step heavenly saint. Fight with me. Even if there are 7 of you, you can't escape from me. You'll all die. You'll all die. The 8 demonic emperors shouted fiercely. In the end, they were almost roaring. Their faces were distorted, containing endless hatred. Kill. Du Tingxian, Jialo Jueyu, and the others did not waste any more time. Everyone attacked with all their strength. A series of terrifying attacks rained down, trapping the 8 demon emperors within. Such a battle was extremely terrifying, and heaven and earth were boiling. Meanwhile, in other places of the three continents and Kyushu realm, the fierce battle was still going on. Kill! Kill! Countless creatures roared in anger. Their emotions were aroused. Even if they had to risk their lives, they would kill all the people of the devil religion. Crazy! They've all gone crazy. These people have gone crazy. All of them have gone crazy. They're all so fearless. How can we fight them? Some people of the devil religion panicked, and fear rose in their hearts. Even Lord Demonic God is dead. Does our devil religion still have a chance of winning? Even if we can win, we still won't be able to survive in the end. Yeah, even if all the creatures in this realm are dead, without Lord Demonic God, once the experts from other realms come in mass, how are we going to fight back? Even supreme experts like the Lord of the 3,000 Sectors worlds and the Dragon God are probably still paying attention to this realm. It's over. The devil religion is finished. Fear spread rapidly, and all the people of the devil religion had the intention to retreat. They were not afraid of fighting with the creatures in this realm, but they could not see any hope. Without the demonic god leading them, even if they killed all the creatures in this realm, what could they do? In the end, as long as the experts from other realms came, they could easily kill everyone of the devil religion. Supreme experts like the Lord of the 3,000 Sectors worlds and the Dragon God probably did not even need to make a move. Even if the 8 demonic emperors were still around, without the demonic god, could the devil religion still be called a devil religion? Run. After the panic, there was a huge collapse. The creatures in this realm were enraged by Du Xiaofu's death, but they were different. With the demonic god dead, all the devil religion experts were only left with fear.